Welcome to Lighting the Void.
Broadcasting live from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. Here live from Forest Tower Studios. This is Lighting the Void. I'm your host, Joe Root, and we're live on Fringe FM. It's the night before Turkey Day, and I have one of my most favorite people on the planet, the real Florida man. Like if the Florida man cryptid himself, Paranoid American, is on here with us tonight. Visit the website at paranoidamerican.com. If you're a comic book lover, if you're a lover of all things conspiracies and all things macabre, all things weird and strange, and the truth, if you want to get down to it, and you like it to be sprinkled with graphics and comics and things that tease the mind, Paranoid American's where you want to go. One of my favorite places to go. Also, the Fringe FM should be one of your favorite places to go. We desperately need your donations right now because, and I'll tell you why. The most expensive thing that we have is the system that runs the radio station that allows all of the fancy stuff to be put out. Okay. It's for syndication reasons. It's expensive, and we're down to the wire where we might have to downgrade to something that I don't want to downgrade to. I will still make it sound pretty because I can make anything pretty, but it's a pain in the ass to do that. Right. So if you care at all, if you have a soul, you should donate to the Fringe FM. If you don't, you're soulless. You're just a walking alien with no soul if you don't donate to the Fringe FM. No, I'm just playing.
If you love the truth, you will donate to Fringe FM. Any true truth lover.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of starting over in a sense, like we have many times before. But I love this stuff so much. I'm not going to give it up, man. I might give up the app, though, because the app is cool and all, but it's like most people go to the website, they just go to fringe.fm and hit play. I mean, we got all this cool stuff on the app that people can use, but honestly, when I look at all the listener dots, they're on the website, just hitting the play button, So we're going to cut some fat, and then we're going to redo this thing. There's a lot of cool stuff in the works, too, that we're thinking about doing. But make sure that, without your support, we can't really do it. Because then what's going to happen is it's going to go from a network to a podcast, and then I'm just going to be another narcissist doing a podcast where everything's about me and my shit. And like, is that what you really want? Do you want me to do that? Because I'll do it. I'm tempted, right? But anyways, no, all joking aside, it's a great time to give thanks because Thanksgiving's up. So whatever you're thankful for, I kind of want to talk to Paranoid American tonight about that. It's a fellow brother, let's just say brother of life, probably knows a little bit more truth, I would say, than 30% of the public about Thanksgiving and all the stuff that happened back then. If he's done his research, we'll put him to the test on that. But yeah, but here's the thing. We were going to do before I left Florida, we did a show where we got on Omegle and we asked the public, what did we ask them? Do you believe in Bigfoot?
We had a bet. It started with a bet, and I basically was thinking, because I think I was interviewing you, and we did something called the Paranormal Conspiracy Probe on my podcast.
Yeah.
PCP. And one of the questions was about Bigfoot, and I can't remember where you were at on a scale from 1 to 10.
I was like,
but at the end of it, you were at like a 3, and I thought that was a little bit underwhelming. Like I was surprised by that, and you're like, no one believes in Bigfoot. And I think I'm paraphrasing this, and I remember thinking like, I bet you that at least half of the people that you just ask at random would believe in Bigfoot. And you were like, well, let's put this to the test. Mm-hmm. So you loaded up Omegle.
I lost.
And we just, dude, yeah, I mean, like you thought you were going to come out blazing, right? And I was like, I'm good, but it was like 0 for 4. And I was like, I'm not worried. I still feel like I'm going to win this. And then every single one after that. And there was even some like genius Indian dude that called me out on my BS.
Yeah.
Cause I was like talking out of my behind on a couple of topics. And he was like, well, actually, it was about like some Neanderthal or something that was found. He's like, well, actually, it was part of this, genus. And he believed in Bigfoot, too. You were like, oh, this is in the bag. And that guy's like, no, I think Bigfoot might have existed, So I was thrilled about that. But you lost the recording. And we went to go and do it again tonight. And what happened? What happened when we went to start?
Oh, so we pulled up Omegle, and it has a big tombstone on it. And there's some big thing where it's like, it's like some big rant where this dude's like, I realized the effect of Omegle and what it's done to people's lives. And he gets into human trafficking. Apparently there's some, like when you open up, well, I don't understand why he wouldn't know this to begin with. Number one, when you turn on something on the internet and you say, hey, everybody, you can all just do this for free and talk to whoever you want. Like there's going to be dirtbags out there, man. I mean, there's dirtbags in every facet of society, right? But I don't know. I didn't read the whole thing. So
I just clicked. I'm not going to get into the whole detail, but at the very, very end of the letter, where he's basically signing off and saying Omegle's gone for good, it says, I thank AM for opening my eyes to the human cost of Omegle. And if you click on that link that says AM, it goes to the actual lawsuit that was filed against Omegle. And it just says AM, an individual plaintiff. And then it basically lists what they were getting sued for. So for the first one was that Omegle basically facilitated trafficking for minors. That's the number one bullet point. And then it says invites people to talk to strangers. When two people are matched, they're immediately brought face to face. I mean, this is all true. That the product markets its product to children as young as 13 and knowingly matches children with adults. That's a little bit crazy. And then it starts devolving into all the creepy things that can happen from that scenario where you've got a kid that matches up with a strange adult out on the internet. Just imagine all the weird things that might happen. So I guess that they came directly after Omegle because of how it facilitated this stuff.
Dude, that's surprising to me that it's that easy for that to happen. Because when you're on there, you can simply just turn stuff off. You can just click, I'm done. There's no personal information that's given or whatever, right? But it also had filters on it, right? Where you could click on filters because you don't want to talk to certain people about certain things. And, you know, we got warned by when we were doing it. Like this drunk guy was singing 80 songs the whole time, right? And he's like, yeah, let's do this Bigfoot. Yeah. And he was like, wait a minute. Have you met any of the trash on Omegle yet? And I was like, no, because I use the filters, right? But I guess I didn't get on it long enough. There was this one kid that I was like, hey, you're on the radio. It's the Fringe FM. And he was like smiling and happy. And I said, and it was so weird. I said, we want to know on a scale from 1 to 10, like, do you believe in Bigfoot? And he just started going and crying. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, he just started breaking down.
You triggered him, bro. You look like the last guy that matched up with them, and it didn't go as well.
Oh, that's so crazy. That's crazy, man. I mean, I wonder, like, I'm sure there are people that get on there to, like, I just want to find somebody and talk about my problems, you know. But, look, I got inspired to do this because there was a rapper that was doing this. And he's one of those freestyle rappers that he's like, hey, I want to do a freestyle for you. Give me like 3 or 4 words, and I don't care what they are, and I'll make a rap about it. And so people would be like, yeah, and they give him 3 or 4 words, and he made and I was like, well, we could do this on the radio. Not me. We get involved with like drunk people, you know. I'm pretty sure he probably filtered all that stuff though, and then found the right people and posted it, you know.
Well, so we got a backup, maybe. So Chat Roulette is something that's just like Omegle, and their website now says that they have state-of-the-art AI moderation and that it is for adults only. So I guess that they're sort of navigating away from the exact things that Omegle kind of got tripped up on. So yeah. I guess we can try Chat Roulette out and see how many, you know, inappropriate things pop up on the screen.
So at the bottom of the hour, I'm going to set it up and probably run a test thing and during the break to see, you know, what happens. And then we'll come back and try. Because
are we going to repeat the Bigfoot question, or are we going to switch it up, or what?
I was trying to ask you that on the gram because I was thinking,
I kind of want to do the Bigfoot again, just so, I mean, let's say the first one was a fluke or a gimme.
Yeah, like we asked the public, what did they think about Bigfoot? And then the next time we do this, we could come up with another question, you know.
I mean, there's endless questions for asking random strangers what they believe in.
Yeah, because some people get pissed. They're like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't, that's like this one girl was like a real hipster kind of girl. She's like, I don't think about that kind of stuff, man. You know, I'm like, okay, well,
I'm just here talking to strangers on the internet. I don't got time to be looking at Bigfoot. I'm a busy person.
Yeah. It's interesting it's just an interesting thing because we just pre-recorded a show. I don't know if you want to plug this, but you have on your YouTube, you have a playlist called, was it Paranoid Programming? Is that it?
Yeah, definitely plug it. Paranoid Programming. And it's where I teach people how to use AI, because essentially I get messages from friends and fans and just everybody saying like, oh man, I saw that you did this thing. How can I do that? Can I hire you to do this? And first of all, no, I don't got any time to do anyone else's projects. But what I do have time is to link up with someone, for like an hour or so and show you how to do it by yourself. And the number one thing I'm really trying to convey to people is that AI, it sounds all complicated and all technological. Like you need to know all this. You don't need to know anything. You need to know how to log into a website and what buttons to click on and how to interact with something. And that's it. So I taught Joe, and I've created a monster, I think.
Oh yeah.
And now Joe can just make anyone say anything that he wants.
Now, just so you guys know, I'm officially making this announcement. I'm going to be doing video from here on out. Like I for many years, I wanted to be the voice in the night that nobody could see because I like the theater of the mind type thing. But I've been fighting a dead horse. I think that those days are gone, right? Even when
video killed the radio star, man. You heard the song.
Even when you pull up, I don't know if you guys still listen to him, but like Howard Stern, they have more people going to the video just trying to watch it than listen to him. And I used to love listening to that dude, right? Howard Stern, Art Bell. Even when Art Bell did Periscope, I mean, how interesting to me. I always wondered, like, how interesting, maybe you can help me with this because I'm thinking, how interesting is it just to look at somebody's face, right? Like, it's not a presentation.
To me, it's not.
You know,
but I mean, like me and you, I think we grew up with like Loveline and stuff too, and I think Loveline had a video counterpart at some point, but there was no reason
awesome.
To let, because the coolest part was always the call-ins anyway, and you're not going to get a video of some dude calling in on a landline back in the 90s. But
my favorite like Loveline things that people would call in about were like the meth addicts, right? You know. Because people would call in, they're like, I was dating this person and he got really angry. And then, the doc would be like, well, were they, he would keep probing, were they on some kind of drug and finally it would get around to like, well, yeah, they did a little meth or whatever. And he'd be like, that stuff is very, very dangerous. It promotes this stuff in the brain and angers and tempers. And I'm like, good God, like 60% of these people are calling in they're like drug addicts. It's not really about like relationships for the most part or anything. It was usually people like dumping their abuse or drug stories on there,
Some of my favorite, they used to have, I think her name was Dr. Ruth, who was like this sweet old lady that was like a sex expert.
Yeah, the old lady.
And they would have her on. Yeah, dude. And Pete, you could tell that someone would just hear her talking and not know who she was and think, I'm going to call up this old lady and just shock her. I'm going to ask her about some naughty toys or whatever. And they would try to shock her and she would flip it on them by being like an absolute expert on whatever they were trying to joke about and then end up like shocking that. I don't know. That was one of my favorite parts is when they had Ruth on there.
Yeah, because she would always, you couldn't like surprise that woman with anything.
Nah, dude, she had seen, done, heard, tasted, licked, done everything,
Yeah, it was cool. But that's kind of what I wanted to do, with the Fringe FM. Like, I told you this when I was in your broadcast before, man. Like, I'm in this place where I'm trying to figure out, like, the void inside of me. It was the whole reason why I did Lighting the Void. But now I understand that whole process. And I'm like, I want to have more fun. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be so damn serious all the time. But then everybody's like, Joe, talk about Magick. Talk about the out-of-body experience. I'm like, well, technically, I'm not even supposed to be talking about the stuff that I do, magically. Not really. You're not supposed to even put out that energy when you're going through that stuff. And I've sabotaged my transformative process. I don't know how many times talking about it, I even told people this that were like, and wanted me to come speak. And I'm like, all right, well, I can present it, but I'm going to try to, my thing I want to do is to help people get out of body. That's what I want. I want people to peel themselves out of their bodies like Ghost, like I did, just so they can experience it just once, man. Just that. You just want
to take their wallet while they're out of their body.
You're always with the money thing. I know this about you too. It's always someone's ripping somebody off. No. But the magical thing is like, I was actually being pretty vain, and I went back and watched your show that you did, the Paranoid American show, because I'm kind of self-conscious about what I look like for some reason, and I started listening to our conversation. I was like, damn, that was a good conversation. But then you were talking about how Joe's he's like a magical dude, and I'm thinking, oh shit, right? Like there's something.
Did I steal some of your magic by saying that?
I'm afraid. No, you can't do that. That'd be like me trying to steal some of your mojo. I can't really do that.
Don't you dare, Joe. But I don't have very much left, bro. I
just think that there are better teachers out there than me when it comes to that. I like talking about my experiences with it, but I think there are
maybe do. I mean, but that's kind of the trait of somebody like the best president, right? Is like the guy that's like, you don't want me. Like, I don't want to do this job. The last one that you want to be in my opinion, the last person you want to be a teacher is someone that's like, I'm the best teacher. Ask anyone. I'm the best.
Yeah, I got all these ranks and I'm,
Yeah, I don't like that. And honestly, like maybe you're right on some regards of that, but I would rather have a teacher that's like powering down hot wings and drinking beers with me and like chatting about, philosophy rather than whatever kind of weird academic setting that you might be thinking of, or, having people sign up and I don't know, take like a 7-year silence oath, like a Pythagorean cult or something. But I mean, I think you can learn just as much smashing down celery sticks and hot wings. Like, I don't think that you need all the rigmarole.
No, I mean, like the guy that I learned, I was initiated in a temple and stuff, but the guy that I learned from the most was Liam Thomas Christopher. He wrote that book, Kabbalah, Magick, and the Great Work of Self-Transformation. And the guy, he stayed hidden. He just put out his first YouTube video today, and he's trying, and he articulated what the Golden Dawn process of magic was about in one video better than I did in 2 years, I think. Right. And I was like, damn, and he was.
Well, what am I doing talking to you? Do you got his contact information?
I think we should
can cut this short and I'll contact him.
Like, you don't.
Why are you wasting my time, Joe?
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. But it's not about me tonight. The narcissism of the host of this freaking show, you wouldn't believe it. But it's about you and what you're doing.
This is going in my report. Yeah. All this
narcissism level of Joe Roop just reached from 6 to 7. Okay, so I've never asked you this, man. But what inspired? I don't know why I've never asked you this. What inspired you to do Paranoid American? Like, really? Because you have a whole group of people you work with, dude. You're like when I go to the website, it's like, oh, Thomas is the emperor of this whole thing,
More of like a cult leader, if you want to get specific.
So did the vision come out the way that you visualized it?
A little bit here, a little bit there. But so it started back in 1983. I was just a Spartan, but it started when I was just exiting the military. Like while I was in the military, I've told this story a few times, but I joined right before 9/11. 9/11 happened while I was in boot camp. I was out doing, marching drills or something. I was like a little snot-nosed 17-year-old kid the first time I'd been away from home for more than, 3 or 4 months. And that kind of rocked me because we didn't get told about 9/11. It happened, but I didn't know about it until 2 weeks later. And just coming out of that and seeing how everyone was like, the world's different now. We all love each other. Everyone loves America. Like, we're friends. You know what I mean? And I was just like, I didn't go through any of that. So I don't know. I felt like I missed out on this like, I'd call it now kind of, you know, trauma-based programming, but I missed out on whatever that wave of nationalism was. And it kind of changed me a little bit. I got way more into the Bavarian Illuminati and looking at Skull and Bones and just all the generic conspiracy theory. Alex Jones had the police state that I really, really dug at that time. And I wasn't even into 9/11 as much. I hadn't heard a lot of the 9/11 theories yet because I was still in the military, and someone sent it to me, and that one was like, okay, this is my version of JFK, but I missed out on it. You know, like my parents would always talk about everyone knew where they were when JFK got assassinated. Like everyone, you know, I was in school or I was, you know, over here. And it's like, well, where were you when 9/11 happened? I was like, oh, I was holding a flashlight up in the air like an idiot, having no idea what was going on. So long story, I get out of the military. I'm already conspiracy minded beyond, you know, the norm at this point. And I get a job at Disney. I'm skipping over some steps here, but I'm working at Disney, and I just kept thinking, like, I would love to take all this talent that's around me and use that to teach people about MK Ultra, or use that to teach people about 9/11, or just something. And it slowly matured from there, where I was just like, I might not be here forever, and I'm not there anymore. And it would be silly to not take advantage of this guy that's to my right that worked on Lion King, and the guy that's to my left that does, you know, video editing for all of Disney's movies for the last 2 decades. Yeah. And we got a Foley sound stage, and we got like anyone you could imagine that would be part of a Disney production. Like, I worked with them for a decade. So I just started, you know, hey man, on your lunch break, instead of doodling this thing that you were doodling, how about you doodle this thing? You know, doodle me a picture of the JP Morgan, or doodle me a picture of, you know, one of the Rockefellers or something. And it kind of started from there and then evolved into, hey, this could be a comic. I really wanted it to be an animation, but now we're talking real bucks. We're talking like,
you mean like a cartoon animation? Yeah.
Like a legit 11-minute animation, very inspired by Saturday morning cartoons, or more specifically like Nicktoons, where you'd get like Doug or Rugrats or All Real Monsters, or it would be 11-minute cartoon, commercial break, 11-minute cartoon, commercial break. And that was what I wanted. And the other version of that is a 7-minute. And those were less popular, where you'd have like 3.5-hour segment. Anyways, I wanted to do an 11-minute cartoon, and the freaking estimate was like 80 grand on the low end to put that together in a way that I could present it to like William, you know, Adult Swim or Turner or HBO or whatever. This is early 2000s. And once I saw the price tag on that, we actually found a path there. Another long story short here, but the only funder, he wanted it to like turn it into a Margaret Sanger Planned Parenthood thing. And I was like, I kind of want it to be about time traveling, psychedelic mind control guys. Like, I'm not really all about putting it 100% into Margaret Sanger. So I abandoned that, and then decided if I need to make an animation, then you got to start with storyboards. And a comic book is kind of like more advanced storyboards, higher detail. You know, the writing is right there in a storyboard as opposed to separated in a script. So I figured that could be a stepping stone. And as soon as I started, I kind of just got hooked on that medium and abandoned the idea of doing animation temporarily, at least. Although that's come up again, because some of the projects I'm working on are getting big enough that they might actually warrant putting together a pilot soon.
Well, I hope you do, man, because I think people have been talking about this stuff so long that we have to find a way to entertain about it. Because I mean, the podcast world is so big now, man. You know, I remember back in the day we used to talk about to people, everybody should do a podcast. Yeah, well, I'm thinking about doing a podcast, and now everybody really is doing a podcast. You know, so it's a weird place that we're in, because you got to be creative in a different kind of way. But I think that's good. It's just like we talked about on your show, like AI is coming. So things are more automated. So you got to be creative and kind of stick out when it comes to it. It really did. I mean, honestly, people used to say this a long time ago. It's all about content quality, right? It's going to be The quality of the content is what's going to matter. And regardless of AI or how many people have a podcast or whatever, I mean, it's fair to say that people want the best, quality content. And I think what you're doing, what Juan's doing, is what both you guys are doing, in a sense, is stimulating, right? Like it keeps, and I get bored quick, bro. Like I get bored stiff with stuff.
ADHD?
Yeah, I have it for sure. But
oh yeah,
I'm afraid. I don't like taking Adderall too much because I get addicted to it, and then I start having panic attacks, afterwards. So, but I do have ADHD. But what you guys are doing is great because it doesn't seem like that you're biased, like you're trying to scare people, But at the same time, you're willing to put everything on the table. Even, Juan calls himself a homunculologist.
I made sure that he pronounced that right, by the way. I just want to take credit because everyone wanted to call it homunculologist. And it's like, nah, dude, like there's one way to say that word. And if you're going to be the guy that brings that word out, like it's a new word, right?
Yeah.
And if you're going to establish the new word, like let's make sure it gets established right. Because you can't go back and like reestablish that word. So, and you dropped it perfectly, Joe, as always. Yeah. Homunculologist. That's right.
Yeah. Now I realized that I've went through so much, when it comes to people, relationships, networking, that I know what I want now. Like if you want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs, right? So now I understand.
Very Machiavellian of you.
Yeah, right. So now I understand what the real vision was the whole time for me. And it's a magical process to kind of, not just tell the world before you do it, just do it and then let the world see it. And that's kind of what I've really witnessed from what you're doing, because
that wasn't as intentional. A lot of that,
but it happened.
To be honest here, well, it happened that way. Half of it was just because I wanted the work to speak for itself. Like I didn't want to get, and no shade here, but like I don't really like podcasting or listening to podcasts in general.
Yeah.
Like nothing personal. It was just like if I'm by myself, I'm listening to instrumental music. I don't even like to hear people talking, so it's just all instrumental. But like the podcast world opened up this whole new sort of avenue for it. And it also kind of like lets you discuss things in more open. So like I would rather be talking with people on a podcast about cool ideas than popping on like some TV show or something somewhere. But that was kind of like the afterthought. The other thing that kept me sort of in my cave and just creating for the longest time was just crippling social anxiety that extended itself into like a virtual online atmosphere, like a big Zoom call or hell, just I think the first 3 or 4 podcasts that I did, I had to take like 2 Xanax before.
Oh, really?
And just like hype myself up in order to kind of get into it. And then at a certain point, it I don't know. I started taking other sort of drugs,
right.
Like prescription drugs to address it. And it would like made all the difference to me. So I'm one of those guys in the conspiracy world that's like no man's land. Like I'm pro SSRI, which is very like a no in some of these avenues. But
I want to ask you about that. Okay. But like I'm prone to depression, right? Like I'm a very emotional and passionate guy. So both of those things are in me. So like I just go for whatever fires me up, makes me feel good. I go straight at it. But when it doesn't happen, I'm like, yeah, right. And then I'm depressed. But I feel like I've been depressed my whole life. So I started thinking about that the other day. I was like, everybody speaks out about SSRIs, but what if some people actually need that stuff, right? And there's plenty of doctors that say, well, you need it. But then I watch YouTube videos of people that have like gotten off all those drugs, and they're like,
oh yeah, man.
They're like, oh God, they're just crying and falling apart. I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, I don't know if I want to get involved with another thing that I'm dependent on,
Well, so, I'm definitely not a doctor. Let's pretend I am, but I'm not a doctor, but I definitely see, like, and this is from when I went to my doctor, but I've got one that I just take daily, and it just kind of like gives me a decent amount of stability where I don't have like high, ups and downs in terms of anxiety. But then if I know that I'm going to be in a anxious situation, if I had to go to like a comic convention, right, and sit at a table and meet possibly thousands of people and look them in the eye and shit, like do all the things that you would expect to do, then I'm probably going to take a Xanax or maybe two. Or if I got to get on a plane, dude, for the longest time, for like, for the first like 10 years of my professional career doing like software development, if I ever had like a really important interview, I would just take a Xanax before the interview and kill it. Like I would just, and it would be so weird because I would be in a situation where I would be completely cognizant that normally right now I'd be freaking out. Normally right now I'd be looking for an excuse to leave or just like anything to get me out of this situation. But I don't. I know that I would be feeling that right now, but I don't feel it right now. And that has been incredibly helpful. But because of how powerful and how helpful that is, like I treat, like my Xanax as like the philosopher's stone that I've only got like this limited amount. So like I'll save it if I'm going on a plane trip, or I'll save it if I'm going to a convention. But I couldn't imagine some people that take it like daily or,
dude, they get
like
withdrawals.
A few times.
Bad.
Well, the prescription I got is take 3 or more times a day as needed. I mean, that's crazy, dude. I take maybe 10 in a year. If it's like a lot of heavy flying and conventions, maybe 20 in a year. But there's some people that are taking that in a week. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I feel like that's probably closer to those dudes breaking down crying, talking about how hard it was to get off of these SSRIs. I understand it. I believe it.
Really. And yet you're talking to me about salvia and all this other stuff. I love salvia. I mean, I promote it to anywhere that'll listen, but nobody wants it. If I could do a radio show where and I know there's probably no way to do this based on what you've told me.
Wait, were you out in Arkansas? I'm pretty sure it's illegal.
I'm sure everything's illegal here. It sucks here. That's why I left. I didn't want to come back. I had to come back, but I heard, by the way, a lot of people are moving to Arkansas. It's crazy.
Schedule 1, dude. Yeah, it's hardcore in Arkansas, here, dude. Yeah. Wow. Okay.
We have medical marijuana here. That's about it. There's a green one of those stores right up the road from where I live. But you have you, and I could be wrong about this, but you haven't had a mystical experience without.
Correct.
Without taking the substance.
I've never had a spiritual experience without some kind of, and I don't even know if I would classify psychedelics as spiritual. It's the closest thing that people usually reference when they're talking about seeing this like other reality. I kind of feel like I just got another, view at it. Maybe I got a microscope, or I got, x-ray glasses out of the back of a comic book. Like I was seeing the same stuff that's always there. But yeah, I mean, I've tried. I mean, I was incarcerated for a while, read the Bible back to back 3 or 4 times, like, prayed to Jesus every day for the entire time I was in there, thinking that like, maybe it's just a numbers game. Maybe if I just do it long enough, it'll click and it'll be like, oh, hey, sorry, I missed your first 300 calls, but now I'm here, but yeah, none of that happened. I've been to, Notre Dame. I've been to like, all like cathedrals all over the world. And I don't know. I've never felt that. And I've seen people do like the speaking in tongues. And I was in a church as, not an altar boy per se, and all the things going like that. When I was in the military, I, was a chaplain assistant. So, I mean, like I've always been fairly large into the church, although never religious, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. So,
was I telling you about how I used to steal the Eucharist and do like science experiments with them?
No, I'd never heard this.
So growing up Roman Catholic and truly being taught, maybe not believing, but the whole like transubstantiation thing, right? The wine turns into blood, the Eucharist turns in the body. So I always like was a scientist at heart. And I wanted to put that to the test. So since I was like an altar boy, I could get the Eucharist before they got blessed. So I would take some of the Eucharist and stuff in my pocket, and then I would wait until communion was given out, and I would actually, like, they would give you the communion, and I would hold it in my mouth and not let, like, the inside of my lips or my tongue touch it, and just keep it real taut at the end of my teeth. And when I went back, I would, like, sneak that into my other pocket. And when I would go home, I would, like, take little pieces and, like, burn one side or the other, or I would, like, drip, like food coloring on one and then the other, just to see if there was, like, some actual difference between the body of Christ and this cracker that had not been blessed before. So, I mean, that was, like, I was fascinated by it, but I never really believed it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I think religion is meant to be like a doorway into the mysteries. That's why I'm surprised. I'm not surprised that you created Paranoid American with all these questions and stuff, right? But I'm surprised that you haven't had like your thoughts on Magick, right? Like, what are your thoughts? Just be straight up honest with me. Like, Magick is
fake.
Not a transformative process, right? But as I do this and this happens, you think it's fake?
I think it's a romanticized version of just cause and effect. And that's, we're oversimplifying it, right? Because you just said the word magic, like it's just one word that has one definition for everybody. So I think a lot of people attribute magic in ways that I don't really see it the same way. I'll give you a specific example, I think. So there's green language, or the language of the birds, right? And this is essentially everything's a symbol. And I remember as a kid, like I really did believe this, or I was like trying to figure out if this worked. And it would, like, here's a really dumb example, but it would be like, I was looking for something, right? I'm looking for my Spider-Man trading card, and I can't find it anywhere. And I would, like, make these little agreements of, like, if I open up the top drawer and it's in there, then, that means that this other thing is true. Like, making these, like, little like formulas and agreements. Yeah. And every once in a while you'd open the drawer and the thing would be there, and you're like, oh, well, that has to mean that, like, I got to go and see my friend, or I got to go and play, Super Mario 3 again, and I'll beat the boss because I told myself with the card. And all that is green language and language of the birds. The same as looking up in the sky and seeing the migration fly by and being like, oh, there's something bad's going to happen today. You know what I mean? It's just in a modern world. Like, my version of seeing a flock of birds and predicting maleficence was really like, I found a Spider-Man card on my top of my dresser, which meant I was gonna, beat level 4 of Super Mario 3 later that day. To me, it's the exact same thing. It's just one's in a technological environment, one's in like an older environment. So
you have a very logical, rational mindset. Is what it is, right? Which is great. Well, we should all have that. So, well, I'm an engineer by trade, but I feel like I never had a choice. Like, I've just always been an engineer. So this is why I'm probing here, because when we get to the asking the general public, we don't know what's going to happen, by the way. Like, we don't know who we're going to talk to. We don't even know if they're going to talk. We don't know if they're going to cuss us out. We don't know it may turn out to be a wash, right? But what's the over under? We see some gooches. Man, if they start flashing vaginas at me, dude, I don't know how much of that I can take, dude. Like, I'm too old for that crap, man. Really? Let's just say that if we start getting people that are doing inappropriate things, we don't cut them off, but what we do is we keep a separate tally for, like, the inappropriate people, and we can get a separate reading on how much somebody that flashes their gooch might believe in Bigfoot versus a normal person that's not doing that. Yeah, right. Like, I do, like, oh God, now you got me, I'm having anxiety about it. I remember playing Xbox Live, playing Halo one time, and some girl got on there. Did you ever play, like, Xbox Live? You're my age, right? Yeah, I'm turned 40 this year. Yeah, so I was playing Xbox Live, playing Halo one time, and some girl got on there and started she just popped up her little video chat and my son was in the room, and I'm like, Jesus, man. Well, you can do video chat on Xbox Live, like show your face? Yeah, oh, wow. Yeah. You have to open up a thing, and my roommate was with me, and he's like, just open it and see what she wants to say. I'm like, I don't have a good feeling about this, right? And I opened it, and sure enough, it was that. And I'm thinking, what? Like, I don't know, and this is maybe what happened to that Omegle guy, because he's like, there's child trafficking, you can't stop a 16, 17-year-old whatever from doing whatever if you just hit a button, like it disgusts me.
And they're FBI agent dads in the background, so they're like, you're arrested.
Yeah, we got you. I'm like, what are you talking about? Right. So I have a hesitancy about opening these kinds of things up, but at the same time, I blame it on the public, the listeners, because there's plenty of listeners. I see them every night. They don't call in, so I don't have a choice. I have to ask the public.
Well, the listeners aren't going to see anything, and if I see it, I'll just blur it out for whenever we post the video of this.
Just be like, that's inappropriate, right?
I'm not scared. I've been in the military. I've seen things.
I'm not scared either. I just, I'm going to keep a positive mentality about it. So coming up, we're going to do this, but for how long, I don't know. Because it gets, like, even last time when we got to like the 8th person, I'm like, okay, we're starting to push our luck here. Nothing too bad has happened yet, right? But whatever, man.
That's kind of the fun, though, man. I mean, this one's called Chat Roulette. I mean, it reminds me of Russian roulette. It's like that 6th chamber is always going to have a dick in it.
Yeah, right. So, all right. So we still got a few minutes before we have to take the break. So I, on the other hand, have lived a very magical life, especially for the past 5 or 6 years. And what I mean by that is, like, synchronicities have happened. I made it a point, and like a void walking point, to not depend on anything outside of myself, right? So if people want to donate, they'll donate. If people want to sign up, they will. If people want to help, they'll help. But I will not depend on anything other than I guess you could say, the voice in my head, or the higher self, or whatever that's guiding me. And it turned out it manifested a lot of cool stuff in my life. Not all of them came into fruition, but most of them were vision things. Now, I wouldn't call that a cause and effect, in my opinion, because I was asking for help and trying to do all this stuff before I even got on this process, right? So things like divination, or even radiomancy, or just weird stuff that would happen, and you could attribute
radiomancy.
Well, you could attribute it to a psychological thing, right? So for instance, if you have a deep yearning question, right? And you're probably going to laugh at this, but this transformed my whole way of thinking, right? Like, if you have a deep yearning question, not just, is Bigfoot real? And you don't really give a damn. I mean, this is something that, like, your soul wants to know. I would turn on the radio, and I would just hit like seek a few times until I felt it was time to stop. And then I would listen to the lyrics of the song. Now, it only worked when I was in a deep, like, emotional state, right? It only worked because it would answer the question specifically, right? And then I got to where I was like asking other questions, and it would answer the question specifically. Same thing with tarot. And then I started realizing, okay, you could do this with anything, right? And this is kind of why they killed Socrates, because he started learning, he's a genius. He put out all these philosophies, but he started learning to talk to his higher self. And they're like, this dude's talking to himself, and he's like changing everybody's minds about stuff. Let's kill him, And they killed him. So I think it's a very real thing. I think it's not what people think it is, though. Like, I don't know. I mean, Grant Morrison did kind of convince me about the sigil thing, and I told you about the experiment I had with sigils and how that happened. And I've done some other experiments where things manifested instantly.
I love Grant Morrison. I love his sigils and Alan Moore and all of it. And even Aleister Crowley, I guess, at a certain point, because they sort of showed completely different ways to think, like way outside the box. Some of them, Aleister Crowley might be like a dick about it. He might leave you on a mountain to die. But I think that calling some of that stuff magic, though, was really just about opening your mind to different ways of thinking. And to some people that is magical. Yeah. But I mean, to others, I don't know, like, it's the same thing where maybe someone has a psychedelic experience and like, I talk to God. But if someone else has a psychedelic experience,
Space
and
Jesus.
It's like,
yeah,
Space Jesus, but who's the guy? I mean, I'm horrible on remember names on the moment, but the guy that thought up the double strand helix for DNA structure, that was on LSD. He attributed it to LSD, right? That he kind of had this trip and saw this thing, and that was the thing. And someone else might have been like, oh yeah, well, that was because an angel showed you. You know what I mean? Or, I mean, I guess in mine, that might be supernatural, magical sounding, but I really do believe in maybe this concept of Akashic records. Not in like put on some patchouli and incense and sit in a circle and like, hum to it, but that everyone can possibly always get like the same information, or this idea that ideas like float around. Like if you don't snatch this idea that you have and you let it flow by, it might like latch on to the next person, and that maybe we're not the ones coming up with ideas, but the ideas are like these archetypes that like float around and latch on. And so is that magic? I don't know. Is it supernatural? I don't even think that that's supernatural. I think it's just this thing that we don't have equipment to detect yet, but it's seems demonstrably there.
If I could get you to peel yourself out of body, affect the physical world while you're in your etheric body, right? In other words, not doing PCP, acid, or any of this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. But if I could get you to peel your etheric, energetic body out of your body and then do an experiment where you could affect the physical plane.
Define that part. Define affect the physical. What would be a practical example?
So just like any other science experiment, if you're going to do something, like do you live with somebody?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so say your girlfriend or whatever, she can't know that you're doing this, right? So she can't know that you're doing this. And then I send you some recordings and I say, like, just do this stuff, and wait till you get to this state of vibration and paralysis, and then start, doing this technique to come out. You get out, right? You still haven't told anybody you're doing this, right? And say your girlfriend is at the computer or whatever, and whatever. I want you to move. Say I want you to move into there, right? And I want you to either pinch her or physically like knock on the desk next to her or something like that. Something that you can both verify that it happened. Now you can't auto suggest it into her head. You can't be like, "Hey,
right, I get it.
Did you hear a knock on the desk or whatever?" Like, come to think of it, I might have. Not like that, right? Like, you pinch her in a spot.
Yeah, you can't make Martin preschool him.
Yeah, right. Like, you pinch her in a spot, or you poke her, or something. There's 9 different ways you can do this, right? And it happens. The minute that happens, I think you would be like, okay, it would change everything, right? Because I believe, I don't know what it is. People call it the astral realm. People call it the collective unconscious. There is a place where all of our like brains, if you want to put it in a rational way, all of our minds are connected, and everything is some form of that mind, dense or not dense, like, so in that place.
To be fair, I don't think any of that has to mean magic yet.
No, like when you say the word magic, like when I say magic, I don't think about pull a rabbit out of a hat or, abracapocus, I'm going to get a new car.
I think levitating and shooting lasers, and I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, see, that's why I think it's such a bad word, right? It's magic. It's like ceremonial magic is what I practice, and that's all transformative. It's all it's not like, it's just a transformation thing. So basically you're just tapping into that really deep unconscious part of yourself, and you're learning to speak to it, through ritual and all this other stuff. So when you light an incense and you smell patchouli, that tells your unconscious, oh, this correlates to earth, right? This correlates to this thing. It's not about, I light in the incense and angels are going to come down and start pooping out everything I want, It's not like that. But it's hard to get people.
Isn't that the Abraman ritual? Isn't that basically you're trying to summon an angel and then like give it a wish? And
well, the thing about those rituals is, we got to go to break here in a second, but I question some of those grimoires for one reason only, because they put you through so much like almost, it'd be like if you starved yourself for 2 weeks, you're going to see stuff. You're going to experience stuff. Your mind's going to be auto-suggestive, you know, like it's just weird. All the stuff they tell you to do, like you're personally investing all of this time and stuff and discipline into it. There's always a part of our brains that's like, well, what if nothing happens? Your brain doesn't even want that to be a thing. You know, I think you should be able to do something. If you just want to do magic, like chaos magic, you should be able to do like sigils, sex magic, whatever you want to do, and just see the results, period. Right.
Let me ask you this. Is there, because this one always turned me off, so I'll put my cards on the table. I got a bias on this, but I've always sort of heard from a decent amount of people that are in the magic that there's almost like this Tinkerbell aspect where, like, if you don't believe in magic, if you don't clap your hands, then Tinkerbell goes away and the magic goes away. Or like the Santa Claus, right? Like, oh, if you don't believe in Santa, then he doesn't show up. And I always find that as such a turnoff because it's like, well, you got to believe in magic for magic to work. So if you don't believe in magic,
that's
won't
not
work.
necessarily
like,
true.
Isn't that so damn convenient?
And that's not necessarily true. Like if you want to, in my opinion, if you want to change, like transform, like if you want to go through a big alchemical transformation, then you have to understand high magic a little bit, in my opinion. Okay. If you're going to go the magic route, you could do it psychologically. You can do it any way you want. Right. But, where was I going with this? Like, a lot of people that do sigil magic when they first start, the fact that they don't believe it, they're like, okay, I'm going to put everything into this like you're asking me to, just for this moment. And then I'm going to let it go. And the fact that they don't believe it gives them beginner's luck. I've seen people wig out like, what the hell? Right. That's got to be a coincidence, you know?
Let's do it, man. I want to see some beginner's luck.
You know, well, we're going to do that on your show, right? That's something we have to prep for, you know? I
want to do a show with you that I'm tentatively, you know, like tongue in cheek, but I'm calling it "Make Me Care About Tarot," or "Why Should I Care About Tarot?"
Well, you should. I'm gonna really piss you off on that show because tarot is not. I'll do it, but you don't have to give a shit about tarot, right? Like,
really,
you don't have to. Like,
that surprises me a little bit.
I mean, why would you give a shit about anything that you don't give a shit about?
Well, I guess if I'm putting myself in someone's shoes that's trying to convince me about tarot, that it seems like tarot is like wanting to know an alphabet. Well, you don't have to care about knowing an alphabet, but if you don't know the alphabet, then you can't really put together the more complicated structures and words and patterns. And the way that I guess I've had tarot explained to me a few times is that each one of those cards is sort of like a letter in an alphabet that you might understand the function of one by itself, but you got to understand how they all played with each other. That's where I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. But
well, it just sounds like too much work for.
It does sound like a lot of
and that's
work.
Why when I have people look at like the ceremonial magic process or Liam's book, they're like, this is like 4 or 5 years worth of work. I don't want to do this shit. You know, like then don't do it.
Well, the impressive part to tarot to me the reason why I do care about tarot in some way, it's not because I think that it gives me magical powers or insight, but I love that each card is almost like a memory palace where you've got all these symbols and like the most tiny little benign examples of stuff like which way a dog's head is facing. Oh, yeah. That's like nipping at someone's foot, and just knowing that, oh, if he's looking to the left or he's looking to the right. I love all that esoteric occult sort of symbolism that's baked into those cards, and I really think that is the most important part of them, because that to me is like the true hermetic principle is using symbolism to convey the information. Like tarot's cool because you don't flip it around and it gives you like, this is the full card and here's what all it means. You just get the picture, and you got like hundreds and hundreds of, you know, thousands of variations of these. Not all of them have the same symbolism baked into it, but like if you compare the Rider-Waite versus say the Nap deck, the Hall Nap deck versus like Crowley's Thoth Tarot deck, like that stuff is fascinating to me. Like there's information encoded into those cards.
Well, they put information encoded in there purposefully. They put all these correspondences in there purposely. Before the Rider-Waite deck the history of the tarot is a little choppy, like the Marseille and all the stuff. There's all kinds of different theories and histories behind it and everything. But from the first deck that came out of the Golden Dawn, which is the Rider-Waite deck, then the next big deck that came out of that was the Crowley deck, right? They were told to put these correspondences in there, Kabbalistic, astrological, elemental, energetic. Like Paul Foster Case will even tell you some of them have, the Hebrew letter that corresponds with it, the path on the tree, all of this stuff, what tree and what world it's in and everything. It's like playing Final Fantasy VII, It's a very complicated world. It's worlds within worlds, So there's actually 4 elemental trees
have you
inside
found the
one
golden
big
chocobo,
tree.
Ro? Have you found
exactly.
the golden chocobo?
But that's what I'm saying. There's 4 elemental trees inside one big tree, and in between all these Sephiroth. And you remember in Final Fantasy VII, what was the guy's name? Was Sephiroth, right? In the end,
right? And even the way that you did the little like mana, sort of like you would combine the gems, it kind of looked like a Sephiroth as well.
Exactly.
Right?
And in between all these Sephiroth is the 22 Arcana, the pass on the tree, right? That correspond to a certain energy that goes from one Sephiroth to another. And then all the balls on the tree are like opposites. One manifests another energy, but one directly dual from it is the opposite energy. And now you have like this very complex but beautiful system of conscious exploration, that corresponds to all aspects of yourself, right? Elementally, astrologically, planets, all this stuff. And what we're doing in Magick, and I'll just go to break after this, is it's not like fairy dust, right? It's like I'm a dysfunctional person, which most people that get into the occult are dysfunctional. They start out from dysfunction. And I need structure. I need balance. I need that, and I need to learn what I really want. Because sometimes, like Liam was saying in his video today, a lot of times we think we want something, but it isn't until we get way down the road we realize we don't even want that, because we're fighting ourselves. So we use the system to explore our consciousness in a way that makes sense to that side of the brain, right? Which is the right side of the brain, the romantic side of the brain. In fact, the more, and Joe Dispenza talks about this too, how like they have evidence. Some people are literally changing their bodies and all kinds of stuff because they're tapping into that side of the brain, which is the romantic side of the brain. It's not until you bring masculine and feminine together until the magic happens. So the rational, logical, every kind of rational mind can only experience so much until it brings in the artistic, romance, feminine side of it. And so whether you could just use sex magic or you do it in a ritual. And basically that's what a ritual is. The symbols are on the masculine and the rational side of things that my brain understands on a higher level. And then the romance of the movement, the vibration, the smells, the color is the feminine side, right? And the more I get into the romance of it, the more, like, if you ever heard Crowley's ritual, they're kind of eerie when he's doing them. The more I give in to the play, because that's really what it is art. The more I give into the art, the more powerful it becomes, right?
The harder you LARP.
Yeah, man, the more energy we're pushing out. And if you believe in energy, not in a, you don't have to believe in it in a woo-woo sense. I mean, if you just believe in it in a vibratory sense, it's almost, the deeper you look into it, it's almost impossible for it not to work. Right?
Well, I do believe in energy in a little bit of a woo-woo sense, but I don't think it's like a magic. I think it's more of...
It's just something we don't
still
understand.
Don't have the tools. Yeah, we don't have the tools yet.
Yeah, so we've called them auras and chakras and all kinds of things our imagination has told us what it is because we have to label it something.
Those words trigger me, by the way. Not in like a bad way, but like... When I start hearing someone say, Kundalini or chakra or there's definitely like my mind starts flipping switches even without me being in control. Like it's just like,
Yeah, but you have to ask yourself, like, I think what you should ask yourself is, do you want to know if it's real for real? Or are you just dead set on knowing it's bullshit?
That's a great question.
Because if you don't give a shit, bro, then there's no point, right? Like if you don't really,
I think I would give a shit if it were real, but my expectation of it being real is so low that I would rather spend my time looking into something that I feel has a higher chance of being real, even if it's just as supernaturally feeling. I think that there's this propensity that if enough people all talk about the Kundalini snake, then now all of a sudden it's like the standard, and well, everyone calls it the Kundalini. So if everyone keeps saying Kundalini, that's got to be what it is. And maybe, but also a lot of people just say the word magic, right? And that means a million different things.
That's how egregores are born, by the way, because people start jumping on the train, right? And everybody wants to call it this or that, But I only went after this thing because I wanted to know because after the out of body experience thing, I was like, what, like that changed everything for me, like everything, So what else is real?
If you can show me how to do that, I'd be way more on the fence for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to kind of want to do it, but
you got to believe in magic.
No, you don't have to believe in magic to have an out of body experience. I don't think at all whatsoever. No, that's why I like I talk about it all the time because.
I mean, I do believe in an out of body experience, but I guess in my limited view of thinking, I feel like you're just convincing yourself that you're seeing the outside world, or you're seeing, people that are on their deathbed and they say that they float up into the corner of the room and they can see themselves down on. I mean, I can visualize that too. I can close my eyes right now and visualize myself being up in the corner and looking. Right. So, but to me, it's like, what's the difference? The only difference is the source, which is always trust me, bro. Like, there's no way that you can convince me that what you went through.
I don't go for trust me, bro.
Well, yeah, but I mean, as me being external from you, then you saying I pinched my girlfriend on her ass in an astral projection mode versus you visualized yourself pinching her and then somehow she also coincidentally said that she got pinched. Like, I don't know. It's like I would have to see it repeated like multiple times personally, and even then, I don't know if I'd believe it. So I'm a bad case on this.
No, you don't have to. Like that's the thing, man. That's one of the reasons why, like, when I get into this, I'm like, do you want to know?
Well, what would be some other more useful version than like pinching somebody or knocking on a desk?
I think being able to go to like other places and see the truth of things, right? But you also have to understand that things are distorted in that realm. Like I've gotten out of body and was totally blind. I could feel my desk but couldn't see shit, right? I got out and saw things that weren't exactly like my brain was still trying. It's a weird place, right? It's because your brain's kind of filtering what's there. It's not like you're using your eyeballs, Mm-hmm. So, for example, like when Robert Monroe went out of his body, he did all these different, experiments with variables, right? When he went out of body to his neighbor's house, he said, I saw your wife putting playing cards on the table, right? So his mind saw her putting playing cards on the table. And he didn't tell his neighbor anything. He just asked them, right? Like, what happened when you sat down? And he said, well, my wife was handing out the mail at the table, right? But when he went out, he saw playing cards coming out, you see? So he was in that physical space. His presence was there, but his brain was not seeing everything exactly as it is, and that cannot be explained,
I don't know, man. He was wrong, right?
Maybe, but
he didn't get it. He didn't get it right.
You'd have to listen to the whole thing. So that wasn't everything that he saw. That was just one thing. When 5 things that he's talking about that he saw happened and the guy verifies it, but there's little bitty minute details that weren't exactly the same. Something's happening there, right? And
what do you think about James Randi's, do you know who James Randi is?
No.
The guy that had the supernatural challenge, I think that's what he called it, where if anyone claimed to have any kind of supernatural ability of any kind, clairvoyance or being able to mind read or being able to astral project and remote view and all that, that he would give anyone $1 million if they came and did it in a controlled environment. But then the reason why it never worked was always like, oh, there's too many unbelievers in here, or I can't do it in this environment because it's just like negatively charged, or like I ultimately, why don't we have a modern day?
That's a good question, man. Like we should.
Like, why don't we have a circus? Why don't we have like a traveling circus of people that have like fine tuned these clearly repeatable, unsort of deniable supernatural powers? And if it's because that you have to like be tuned in, I don't know. It doesn't sell me, because now it's subjective. Like now you have to believe it in order to believe it.
Yeah, well, if I told you that I came out of body, I've never expected people to believe me, right? I'd want people to experience it, right? You know,
if I was like Joe, pinch my left ear and then my right ear, and then like pinch my right shoulder, and if you were like actually able to do that consistently, then I'd probably start being like, okay, this dude is magic. Like he's actually.
I could try. I could definitely try for sure. I could try.
How? No, just
I mean, I could try. I've had people call the show and freak me out a couple of times because they got out of body and started seeing stuff that was on my couch, stuff that I had. There was no way they could have saw. Never put any cameras on anything, and I'm like, don't. That's when I started kind of like protecting myself over here. Like, don't come over here doing that stuff. I'm just saying, like, if it's kind of like if you take DMT and you're like, I had a breakout experience and I talked to elves and they showed me all this stuff, and it'd be like telling Terrence McKenna, well, that didn't really happen, Kind of,
except Terrence McKenna, I don't think ever said that, like, the elves, he could send an elf out and like pinch his girlfriend, right?
No.
And I guess, because here's where my mind goes, right? I guess comic book brains, but I'm thinking, if you could do that to one person, couldn't you get 1,000 people to do that to one person? So could you get 1,000 people to pinch your girlfriend at the same time?
Probably.
Like that seems like it would legitimately be something you could measure quite accurately.
Probably, but no one's ever took it to that extent.
Well, why not? Because do we need a Kickstarter? What do we need to do?
I don't think like the people at the Monroe Institute or like the physicists like Thomas Campbell or Dean Radin or any of these people that are like working on this stuff are like, I wonder if we could just 1 million people go pinch one person. Like they look at it. I get where you're coming from, but they're more focused on other things that they think are more important than that, Like, I would love to see if that was a real thing,
I'm curious, too, would it only happen with another person? Like, would you have to pinch a person, or could you say, like, 1,000 people all try to turn a volume dial, like, from 9 to 10? Or is that not the same because...
It's like that movie Ghost, right? Where you've seen Ghost with Patrick Swayze, and he's like trying
and Whoopi Goldberg,
he's like trying to touch the can, and the dude's like, no, from your gut, First off, I think it's incredibly hard to stay focused enough to do that, right? Like for me, it was incredibly hard because I remember when I was doing my experiments and I moved into like where my son was playing video games, and I wouldn't tell him what I was doing, right? But I could feel the dream state coming in, right? It was almost like I could see the dream world coming in. So I'm stuck between, this place where I'm sleeping in my house and this dream that starts to fade into what I'm doing. And this was one of my first experiments that I did. So I beat on the desk next to him, right? I just beat on the desk next to him, and he jerked his head like that as soon as I did it. And then I just let go. And I don't even remember what I dreamed about. But I remember my son specifically asking me if the house was haunted, and I was like, why? What happened? Did something weird happen when you were in there? He's like, yeah, I heard this like knocking on my desk. And that's when shit really got me. I was like, whoa, dude, like this is real, this is kind of real. But to say that I've experimented with it enough to be like, oh man, this is definitely like magic or something like that.
Like, could you do that every night, or do you think that? So what was it like? Is there some? Did the stars have to be aligned?
No, I think it's like if you go underwater and you hold your breath. This is what it kind of feels like in a weird sense. So when you go underwater and you hold your breath, depending on how much you smoked that day, how much whatever, right? You can only stay underwater so long before you got to go back up for air, right? Except in this place, like, you either go back to the body and wake up, or you slip into a dream, or you go unconscious and you don't remember what you dreamed, you know? Like, so it's hard. I wish I could explain it, man. Like, it's...
Well, it sounds like the underwater level of Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, dude, it's hard. Like, it's hard. There's a pull back to your body. In fact, the people that I know that do this the best are William Buhlman, and the best teachers I know are William Buhlman and Robert Monroe. And William Buhlman specifically states, get away from your body as fast as possible, because there's some kind of weird thing that wants you to go back. Dude, I've done this. Listen, I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but I've done this exercise to where my feet were raising up. I could feel my etheric, like, feet coming up, and my head was just stuck on the pillow, and I could feel pressure in my ear, right? Like, I pulled myself up out of my body to where it's like at the waist, and then I'm trying to get out and I can't get out. I've seen little shadowy things that kind of look like that Patterson Gimlin crap that was around the thing that you showed me that was all fuzzy, just show up and shove me back in my body, right? No drugs, no medicines, no nothing. Just listening to binary beats and focusing and relaxing, right? That's it. You know, or hemisync, so to speak, or guided meditation. Now there's so much stuff on there that's like, I listen on YouTube and there's these people on there that are doing it, and they're like, just tell yourself, I'm ready to have an out-of-body experience. I'm ready to travel outside my body. And you're sitting there saying, I'm ready to go now. Like, I'm ready to, and it's like, you can't talk yourself into it, man. You know, like, it's hard to explain. I got so obsessed with it that I got to a state that I'd never been. That's hard to get back to. It's hard for me to get back to that place. So when people tell me, oh, I do this all the time, I go out of my body all the time, I just do, I'm like, because I haven't experienced it, bro. It's hard for me to believe, you know, just like,
just like snap your fingers in and out. So that reminds me, and I know we're wrapping up to do a segue over to the next thing here, but
yeah.
But here's the closest thing that I've got to being spiritual or believing in woo-woo, and it does relate to psychedelics, but it has nothing to do with my personal experience. It has to do with the consistent, reproducible, I'm thinking, you know, like scientific control, and it has to do with salvia, forgive me, but I've seen so many different people from different walks of life at different stages of my life. When I was a teenager, when I was in the military, when I was out in college, when I got out of college at Disney, when I was, like, every single time, don't ask me why, but somehow I've found ways to introduce people that have never even heard of salvia, and I'll tell them, like, hey, this is a crazy experience, you know, you can look into it, but no other prep, and hearing and seeing them describe things that are so similar. For example, seeing a woman at the end of a hallway somewhere that tells them, like, either you're allowed to come through this door or you're not allowed to go to this door again. And I'm talking like
what?
Double digits of people that say this exact thing. And even the old stories of salvia, they would call it Lady Salvia or the Shepherdess or Maria Pastora, which also, it's kind of like related to like a sort of Christianized, you know, anglicized version of this. But it's because there's like this lady that kind of watches over and decides whether or not you're ready to go through this next level of it. There's also this concept of, I guess, what Terrence McKenna would call the machine elves, right? But they're like salvia creatures, and people tend to describe them in the exact same ways. And the way that people also tend to describe like the physical body feelings about their body feeling like it's getting spiraled up, like someone's rolling them into like a cinnamon roll or something, or that their body gets splayed out and they become part of a chair, part of a wall, and that they extend out for infinity. And these things are way beyond just two guys that took LSD and they're like both seeing cobweb kind of patterns. That's a real thing. Those are called form constants. That was actually discovered in MK Ultra adjacent research in the 50s, but that people tend to see like 5 or 6 of the same geometric patterns, but that's a visual thing. What we're talking about in salvia is way beyond visual. We're talking about
an experience,
specific
right?
archetypes. Like an archetype that has a function of being a gatekeeper of like, you're not ready for this, or you are ready for this. Come with me. I'll show you this door. Even those little, like creatures, I don't even know what you'd call them, salvia creatures, but even they have that same feel to them where they're like, either, oh wow, he's here, you know, let's show him where to go, or it's like they treat you like an outsider, and you can almost hear them whispering like, he shouldn't be here, what's he doing here, he shouldn't, you know, like he doesn't need to be here, he's not ready for it. And those things sound so specific, right? But to hear people of all ages and walks of life and, you know, races, creeds, religions, upbringings, all describe these exact same things down to the specifics, that has convinced me that there's some, and that's why I say I believe in Akashic Records. I think that there's like this universal just truth or law or information that's accessible to anyone, and that's what everyone's doing, is they're kind of like checking into that same, you know, section of the Akashic Records, maybe, I don't know, but that's the closest that I get to spirituality. Well, and like woo woo.
My favorite thing to do is this. I'm not here to convince anybody about like magic or any of this stuff, right? What really like floats my boat more than anything, probably better than sex, honestly, would be when someone has an etheric experience and they're just blown away. Like someone that doesn't, like you, for instance, you would be the perfect example of that. So when I went to one of these outings where I was helping people do this, everybody's going to have a different experience based on their ability to relax. And some people think that they can relax, but they're not relaxing. Their ability to relax fully and focus fully so that mind can be awake, they're still awake and aware while their body falls asleep, right? That's a big thing, and it's hard to get anybody there. And no matter how you formulate it, no matter how good your voice is or how much you can keep their attention or how whatever, it's still hard. But when one person who's like an atheist, doesn't believe in any of this stuff, is like in my face for the 30 minutes after a session or whatever, 30 minutes. And they're like, I don't understand what just happened. And I'm like, what do you mean? Because I had a guy do that. He's like, I don't believe in any of this stuff. I'm like, I just don't. Matter of fact, I came here to roast your ass, you know. But when I went through it, like my hand was on my leg. My hand was on my leg, but I scratched my ear. You know, little things like that. And I'm like, well, I was watching you. Nobody scratched your ear. He goes, well, I scratched my ear with my hand, but my physical hand was on my leg. So this guy didn't get all the way out, but his body had gotten to the point where he relaxed. And I even told him during the session, because this is a part of the meditation. This is a part of like yoga too, right? Being able to just be completely still, no matter what scratches, itches, twitches you have to let it all go, right? And his etheric hand couldn't take it, and it scratched his ear, but he could still feel his hand on his, you know, leg. And just for him to be blown away, and I don't even think that's that big of a deal, because that could technically be, you know, like you could.
I don't know if that would like. Yeah. I was an atheist, and then I scratched my
that to me.
Ear.
That was like, that's nothing, man. I got people that are getting out and going out to the fire, dude. Right, like, you know, and seeing themselves sleep. You just moved your arm and you think, but what that shows is that his beliefs were so construct in his mind, his rational beliefs that he had just held on to, for that one little thing tripped him out, right? It just completely freaked him out, you know? So imagine if he would have had an even bigger experience, you know, would his mind be able to be ready for it? This is kind of why, like, I think we want to have certain experiences, but even if we do, our mind will repress them. This is why, like, I think certain people that get abused don't remember it. Like, well, I had a weird dream, and it's like, no, you were traumatized so bad that your brain cut it off and called it something else, you know. But I think some people's beliefs are that hard. Like, they're just that structured, you know what I mean? They're not moving whatsoever. It doesn't make sense. I don't want to say names, but I know people that have written whole books on magic, the occult. They've written all these books. I'm like, have you performed 1 ounce of magic? Have you even tried it? Well, no, I don't practice magic. I just do a lot. Like, then that'd be like me sitting back.
Dude, that's a lot of people on psychedelic books too. There's an astounding amount of people that write books about psychedelics and then say that they actually don't do any of them themselves.
It's crazy to me. This is the thing that pisses me off the most. Like, if I want to know about psychedelics or DMT or salvia, I'll do it. I'll just do it. Right? If I want to know, it's like people be like, oh, I want a job or I want a bunch of money or whatever, but they won't go do the thing that makes them, they won't go do it. Right? Or I want a loving relationship or whatever, but they won't give themselves totally to another person. It's like everybody's scared of everything that they want, or that they don't understand. And to me, part of the reason why I do this show, because to me, it drives me crazy. It's like, what's the worst that can happen if you try it?
You die.
You die. Death is you're going to die anyways, right? So what's the worst that can happen if you go after this dream of yours that's like your dream job? It doesn't work. It's not working now, Like, what's the worst that can happen if you try salvia, if you want to, if you really, like you were telling me about this amazing experience. Like, dude, you got to shut off the lights. You got to do all this other stuff. Now, to me, if I'm like, dude,
no one does that, by the way. Almost nobody actually does it the right way.
That's what I'm saying about Magick and the out of body experience too. To me, like, if I wanted to really know, and maybe I will one day, I would come to you and be like, show me this thing, right? And then I would have to face that fear. I would have to actually be open to it. Shut off, like, plug up all the holes in the lights in the room.
Are we as scared of salvia?
Yeah, I already told you I was scared of it.
It was just because of what other people have described.
Yeah, because I've seen people that have tried it and what they go through, and you explained to me, well, they're fighting this whole. They're putting themselves in a, So I get that, but to me, I also told you I don't like. It might be one of the reasons why I like the out of body experience so much. It's because I'm in control of it. Even when my body goes paralyzed, I could wiggle myself out of it if I want to.
No, this is the opposite.
Yeah, this is the total opposite, right? So,
and it's almost like a drowning person, right? Like somebody that's at that stage where their body's starting to freak out. Like, now they're going to drown themselves from just, not knowing how to calm your, or another good one is people that fall through the ice, right? Someone that falls through the ice, the first thing you're supposed to do is calm your body down and get over that initial sense of shock. And then you kind of like slowly shimmy yourself out. And like, all you got to do is take your time and think about each action with intent. But if you're freaking out, you don't really do that. So that's what a lot of people do on salvia, is that they just start freaking out and they're just trying to scramble and pull themselves out of, like the hole in the ice. And it doesn't go well. And they die. I mean, I think thousands of people die every day on salvia. That's crazy.
So we get each other's point, right? Like,
I'm just kidding, by the way.
I don't know if they do or not, but
no, they don't. People don't die in salvia.
We get each other's point, right? Like, you can't. To me, if you really want to know the truth of something, you have to void walk. That means go right into the unknown. Doesn't matter if it's love, relationships, money, drugs, the out of body experience, magic. Doesn't matter what it is. Like, talking about it is only going to get you so far. Writing about it and studying about it is only going to get you so far. You have to.
I'd argue it wouldn't even get you that far. It wouldn't even get you to the chapter 1.
It's intellectually stimulating, and right now we live in a world where we're just emotionally and intellectually stimulated so much, but we still have all these questions and fears that nobody wants to go through, right? And if you want, I don't like. How do I explain this? Like, if you don't care about the tarot, then that doesn't matter to me. But if you were a person that was really interested in it, it's like, I want to understand it, but I'm afraid. I'm either going to get pissed off because you're not willing to even try it, or be like, I'm an in or out person. You see what I'm saying? Like, why sit there and just tickle it all the time? Just see what's there. Why stress yourself out about it? It's just
people get
magic.
Stressed out over tarot,
dude. I think they do. I've seen people they're doing tarot readings I've done it myself. I've lost my mind in the tarot trying to find answers to things before.
Okay. Yeah.
When I was like, what the hell am I doing?
23 or whatever, the movie 23.
Yeah, like I've lost my mind because I've depended on this divinatory tool that I should be, using it only for certain things, and I don't even look at it in a divinatory way. Like I study it for the story and the understanding of things.
It's a good point, because I don't remember where I got this particular vision from. It might have been just like some joke, but it's like you could get down to the point of consulting the tarot, like, should I go grocery shopping at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m.? You know, should I get skim milk or whole milk? I mean, you could essentially consult the tarot for every tiny menial decision that you ever have to make in your life,
could consult a pebble of rocks for that if you wanted to.
Well, right, you could throw a die, and this could, I mean, and this brings me back to that original experience as a kid with like the language of birds or green language, where it's like, you know, I'm trying to find my retainer so I don't get in trouble. And if I open this next drawer and my retainer's in there, then that means that my basketball team's going to win next Thursday, you know? And it was almost like the magic of like making a bet with the magical angel gods or whoever the hell is running the show, that like, you know, or some people do the exact opposite, where it's like, God, you know, if you let this cop let me go without, you know, a ticket, I promise, like, I won't be mean to like my kids for the night. Like, people make these little deals, right? Like, it's this magical pact that you're making.
That's a superstition to me, though. That's like, you know,
I mean, yeah, but potato, tomato, man.
But I've also seen people pull out like tarot readings. I'm like, you could pull out 1 to 3 cards and get the answer you want, right? You don't have to. And it's like, oh, I pull out 5 decks, and you know, it's this or that, maybe no. And most of the time, all they're really doing is bullshitting themselves or playing with their fears. That's what most of every time they even get a hint of intuition, or you'll see like it might be good, or it's easier to make people afraid. Well, I wouldn't do that because of this, and I wouldn't do that. The tarot's telling me you better be careful, and it's like, what the hell are we even doing here? What are you doing? You got 50 cards out there. You're scaring everybody. Like, what are you doing?
If you replaced one of your tarot decks with, say, baseball cards, and you just told yourself that, you know, I'm going to date myself here, but like, Jose Canseco's the Fool and Don Mattingly is the Emperor, and like, you know, so
you
on.
Could do that.
You know. Would that have the exact same effect as a regular tarot deck?
I think you could do this. If you really believed that you had, first, you have to believe and know that you have a connection to
this is Tinkerbell.
Something that's high. Listen, you have to hear me out, though. Okay, not right. Tinkerbells or angels or whatever, but a higher version of you. Like call it Paranoid American.
Well, now this sounds like AA.
yeah. Well, it's kind of the same thing, though. Yeah, and that thing is trying to guide you. Okay, you could say, or if you don't want to do it that route, okay, if you just want to be like, well, my rational mind just cannot fathom this, right? Yeah. Okay, well, then you say you do this what I call the invocation of the unbeliever, right? And I think it works. You just simply say, look, I don't know what you are, who you are, if you exist, if you're real, whatever. But I'm willing to find out. If there is a real thing out there that loves me, that's watching over for me, that's higher than myself, or whatever all these stupid people are telling me, okay? I need you to use these cards and only these cards to help me understand something, right? And really, you have to be sincere. You can't be laughing to yourself the whole time you're saying it, right?
I don't know if I could, man. I would be laughing,
and that's what
well, I just want to say, like I guess,
because you don't really want to see it.
But what if I've got, you know, I've got a coaster here, right? So what if instead of me saying, hey, that thing that's out there, I don't know if you're out there, you know what I mean?
Right.
But if you are, couldn't I say it to this coaster? Like, hey, I don't know who's in there. Like, and I don't even know if you're in there, but if you are in there and you control this whole universe, right? But I'm being serious. I mean, I'm making a joke, but I'm also
someone
being serious.
Controlling the whole universe. I'm talking about you.
Okay. I mean, I'm being a little facetious.
You have to pretend, like you have to pretend, like for a moment, like when you were a kid, you had an imagination, didn't you? And
yeah, of course.
That imagination served you. It served you.
I guess, yeah.
Sure, it serves all children. Keeps you happy, right? And as a matter of fact, the reason why children are even abused children, right, are happier and look to the future more and have more dreams than adults do nowadays is because they have that imagination. They still have hope. They still have hope for a higher thing. If
they haven't had to have a job yet,
we're not right. We're not robots yet, right? It hasn't destroyed our heart yet. Okay, so like you have to believe that. First off, man, you have to believe that there might be something outside your rational mind that exists, that's real, and if you can't get past that, then what's the point?
Well, I've got the Akashic Records. I feel like that counts, doesn't it? Isn't that? But see, the Akashic Records to me isn't like a sentient thing, and it's not higher than me. Like I don't think that my local library is higher than me.
We're not like, to me, if we went to Omegle and started asking people about Bigfoot, we'd totally be fucking the show up right now. Like, let's jump right into Bigfoot, you know? Yeah. You know, so like, but this is why I like doing this stuff. But we're going to do Omegle, not Omegle. What is it? Chat roulette?
Yeah, chat roulette.
So if you're dead set on believing something, I believe. You ever seen that movie Tin Cup? Not Tin Cup.
Yeah.
Bull Durham.
Kevin
Bull
Costner.
Durham. I'm thinking Costner, but different movie. Bull Durham.
Bull Durham. No, I don't remember this
one.
one.
That's one of my favorite movies, but that's because I grew up playing baseball, right? So he tells this chick in that movie, this Susan Sarandon, I think is her name, right? And she's mad because he told her boyfriend to stay out of her bed, but she told him to store the sexual energy and channel it into his baseball, and had him wearing garter belts and stuff. And he started pitching no hitters, right? So she comes over pissed off, kicks his door in this movie, and says, "Who in the hell do you think you are to tell this man to stay out of my bed and whatever?" And he said, "You're the one that chastised him. You're the one that told him to harness his sexual energy, and you couldn't have sex with him until he lost or whatever." And she starts quoting all these spiritual stuff, and he's like, "Stop with that bullshit." He said this simply. He goes, "It doesn't matter if you're wearing garter belts, if you're breathing out one eyelid, if you're using baseball cards, if you got your underwear backwards on, whatever you believe is what your reality is going to be. And you know that. So stop with the bullshit." Right? And then she just wanted to sleep with him after he said that. But that's my point. Like, whatever you believe is what it's going to be. Right? So you don't want to change your beliefs. And I think a person has to be open. They have to get to a point in their life where, like, I don't know shit, like the void. I've realized that I don't know half of what I think I do. And I'm open to learning anything that's outside of what I think is real. And that's scary for a lot of people, you know, I think. Well, I went on a nasty rant, dude. Sorry.
No, I mean, I agree, but I also I don't know, man. I don't think I'm sold on any of it. What I am sold on is watching
Bull Durham.
Bull Durham. Yeah.
I think you could pull up that clip actually where he jumps her ass when she storms in his house, you know?
Well, I kind of want to watch this from the beginning now because I don't think I've seen this one before.
Did you play baseball?
I did play baseball.
Yeah, then you'll probably like it because I watched that movie when I was in Babe Ruth when, you know, baseball was fun before it got serious in high school and Legion and all that stuff. So I was watching like every baseball movie there was.
Oh yeah, dude. Angels in the Outfield and Major League. And, you know, I used to love baseball movies.
Yeah, and I used to think to myself, man, I would like to be Kevin Costner because I was a catcher too. That's why it was my favorite movie because the catcher is the guy that talks shit. He kind of leads the field, probably the smartest one on the field, you know, right? Knows all the batters, knows all the pitches, and I love that movie. But I was like, yeah, I want to meet a cool chick like that, but I don't want her to be banging the pitcher. You know, and I used to tell myself all the time watching this movie, but that when he jumped her ass in that clip where he was like, whatever you believe, just like you said, if I pulled out some baseball cards and I said this and this one means this or that, if you do it enough, it's going to turn into your reality. I don't even know why people don't try that. You know, like you don't have to do magic.
I agree with you on that. I think that you would change your own reality. But when we first started talking about this, you were talking about objectively changing somebody else's reality.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Like,
that's
it's like
tough,
your son hearing a knock or your girlfriend feeling a pinch. To me, that is the big differentiator here. Like, if you can change your reality, great for you, but I think it's all happening in your own personal meat space. But if you can change my reality in an objective way, in a way that you could be like, okay, let's fly to Chicago. Here, watch this guy. I'm going to push his drink over. I know I'm being a little bit over the top on that, but like, if you could repeat that and keep doing it over and over, then it's like, let's take this damn thing on the road and make $1 million.
Okay, I'll take that challenge, actually. I will. I'll take that challenge, and I'm willing to be wrong. I'm willing to be totally wrong.
So what do you think would be the most reasonable way you could change objective physical reality in some observable way?
Like, I don't think
anything.
I don't. Okay. So that'd be like me saying this: God, if you're real, why don't you come down here in a way that is there's no way we could say that's not God, right? It's totally God, and talk to all of us. Why don't you do that? And if you think,
I mean, I'm asking you though. I'm not asking God.
I'm telling you, try to explain.
God, the hubris on this guy.
No, listen, hold on.
Man.
Let me explain this so I can get to my point. I'm willing to take whatever challenge you want to take. If I'm not afraid. But if God came down in a form, right, and is like, I'm God, what happens? What if he came down into like a cryptid or something? What if he came down and looked like an angel? What if he came down and looked like Dragon Ball Z? What if he came down and looked like whatever, right? There would always be some person on this planet that'd be like, that's the devil. That's fake.
Well, okay, so that's fine, but if it could prove it was God or the devil, if it looked like Dragon Ball Z, that would be enough for me to say, okay, supernatural is real. They wouldn't even have to prove if they were a demon or an angel or a hologram.
There would be a YouTube channel somewhere going, that's fake, that's not real, that's the devil. One conservative channel saying it's the devil, another one coming up saying it's fake, and another one coming up saying, well, that's got to be God, he's destroying cities. Well, no, it's HARP doing this stuff with that. Like, it's whatever you say it is.
Fair point.
You know, that's what the great I am is. You have the ability to change yourself moment to moment. I'm pissed. Okay, you're pissed, right? Or I'm magical. Okay, you're magical. Well, I'm fucking stoned. Okay, you're stoned. Like there's nothing else.
I'm passing this test. Well, yeah. No, you're not passing this test.
You're not passing this test, right? Like,
no.
But that's different, though. That'd be like me saying, oh, I'm rich, but like I'm not. Or I'm skinny, but I'm actually fat. You know, you can't deny reality and trick yourself into thinking something is real, but you can believe that you can get to a certain point because we're on the earth, right? Like I didn't just start popping out of body. Like, oh, I'm listening to Robert Monroe. I'm going to lay down and boom, jump out of body. It took time to get to that point. Did my mind make it real? Was my mind so powerful that it actually knocked on the desk and affected other people's reality? I think it did, regardless.
Well, so that could be proved though, because I'm asking for your, what you think happens. So if your son hears the knock and it's, scares him enough that he wouldn't mention it, and then you're thinking like, wow, he heard that knock. Do you think, hypothetically, if there was a, tape recorder recording, would that have also heard the knock?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know.
Because that would be a really easy way to reproduce this, is that now try that again and put like a recording device somewhere.
Yeah.
And now if your son or whoever says they heard a knock and it's on the tape recorder, now you're building towards something reproducible. And if you can do that multiple times, now you're onto something. And I think that you could take that show on the road, and I hate to always bring it back to money and make that thing lucrative, man.
But it also feels like I don't want to do this as a circus act and make a bunch of money.
Why not though? No, seriously though, why not? Why would that be such a bad thing?
I don't know.
Because then you would be proving to people nationwide, worldwide, that magic is real.
First off,
how could that be bad?
I am not efficient enough at the out-of-body experience to be the guy that's going to prove this to the world. Okay?
But are we saying that there's no guy at all because there's no one doing this on the road?
I think just like what's his name that did the experiment, the collective experiments. What was his name? They did the experiments with mice and dogs, and like they've shown that it's a rule that when a human makes a boundary, you can't long jump this, or you can't run this, or stay underwater this long. The first human that breaks that, everybody catches up to it, right? Just like it just happens for some reason, which is weird. Another thing, like, well, we're going to affect the collective of mice over here, okay? And when we start messing with these mice and we get them to do certain things, now mice in a whole other country are doing something. I forget the guy that was doing those experiments, but once they broke something, the rest of the herd would start doing it, right? So it's also, they've shown this in particles. We can put particles thousands of miles away, right, and destroy one, and another one will pop up in its opposite field somewhere, right?
Yeah, like entanglement, like quantum entanglement.
And they've proven that. So they're proving, and there's already neuroscientists, there's already people that are coming out and saying that this stuff is real, but they can't explain it. So they don't call it magic, they call it science, right? But there is a metaphysical realm that we cannot see. They still can't explain why the particles are doing that. Just like I can't explain why the hell I got out. I feel like I'm being pulled back to my body when I'm out of body, and it was incredibly hard for me to do it in the first place. So when I hear other people say, oh, I just do it on a whim, or I astral travel all the time, I'm like, that's bull. That can't be real. Or I went to the halls of Amenti and talked to Thoth and all this other shit. Like, my mind is like, no, you didn't. There's no way.
What about past life regressions where someone finds out that they were Napoleon, or,
Dude. Oh, man. I did a past life regression. You can listen to it live on the air.
What king were you?
I wasn't a king. I wasn't.
Which emperor?
I don't even know what I was. I think I was working on a plantation, Like, but there was a part of me that felt auto-suggestive. Like, the guy put me under, and this is why I found it fascinating, because he put me under into a point of when he asked me a question, I started to understand hypnotism at that point, right? Because when he asked me a question, I felt like I had to come up with an answer, right?
Yeah.
So fast that crazy answers were coming out. And those crazy answers built a story that when I went back and listened to it, there were parts of it, I'm like, what? That doesn't even make sense, right? What I'm saying. But the only thing I could relate to when I went back and listened to it was the stress that I was under when he would ask a question. He'd be like, well, what else does that mean? Right? What else is this? And my mind was suggestive to answering these questions that normally if you asked me now, I'd be like, shit, I don't know, man. So was that really my past life? Or did my brain come up with all of that? I don't know the truth, but I do know this, that I was saying things that I wouldn't normally say. And not because I wanted it to be cool, not because I wanted it to be real, not because I didn't want to embarrass myself, but because I felt like I had to. Right?
Well, you were in a state of suggestion, which is all hypnotism really is. And when you get into that state, you become sort of like I want to say a people pleaser, but what you do is your body tries to remain in that state, or it's in such a freaked out situation that the first thing that seems rational, it will do. This is the same, MK Ultra programming.
Yeah,
the same thing happens with people that are sleep deprived. But once you can break any sort of chance that person has of resolving themselves on their own, they'll just start taking anything offered in front of them. You're that person drowning at sea.
Hypnotists do.
And someone gives you like a stick, right? You're going to grab onto that thing. Like you don't even have to think about it. Instinctually, you're just grabbing onto that thing. And that is what stage hypnotism does. There's also this, Darren Brown's one of my favorite sort of like mentalists. I don't know if you're familiar with Darren Brown at all. He's a UK guy, but he's got this routine where I think it's called the Russian pickpocket. I'm sure they've changed that name since it's probably problematic, but that most people can only keep something between 7 and 13 concurrent ideas on their conscious mind at one time. So he'll walk up to somebody and he'll just bombard them with, hey, do you know what time it is? And as they go to look at their watch, he'll interrupt them and be like, hey, is the, bridge down this way? And as they go to look and see, he'll be like, oh, actually, do you have your wallet on you? So like, and he'll just keep doing that until like 5 or 6 things. And then you'll notice the person is like completely frazzled.
Yeah,
they can't do shit. Answer this. And then he'll be like, take that watch off. And you'll just see them like, as they're like, yeah, I think the bridge is down that way. And he's like, take your watch off. And you're like, so anyways, yeah, the bridge. And he's like handing it over. And, like, sure, maybe that's all fake too.
No, I don't think that's fake. I mean, I've seen girls go down like that, dude. Just dudes,
that's
dudes taking,
right?
Yeah, so when you go into hypnotism, like you have to know this could happen, right? And that's why stage magicians will do, they'll do it quick like that too. They'll be like, oh, cluck like a chicken, or make this move, or raise your hand. If they'll do something to where they can tell the people that are just gonna like do whatever he says, right? Like they'll know which ones, and they'll be like, you and stay up here, the rest of you sit down, Like he already knows which ones are going to be able to do it. And then if he can get you relaxed enough, because there's a part of you that wants to have an experience so bad that you're willing to just let go, right? And
you LARP, bro. You just LARP it into existence.
Yeah. So I did it, man. Like I did the past life thing, but I did it only to see for myself, right? But when people ask me, was that really your past life? Was that really the truth? Did that really happen? I always tell them, I don't know. I couldn't tell you yes, because if I said yes, that would be a lie. I couldn't tell you all of that was bullshit, because I don't know. It's possible to be on both sides of this thing. But when I hear Betty and Barney Hill, when they did it with him, and he's like screaming the top of his lungs, and I know what a scared man sounds like, like he's about to die. Like he's feeling like that was this crazy. Have you ever heard that? The Betty and Barney Hill tapes?
If I did, it was way too long ago, and I don't remember it now. I know who Betty and Barney Hill are, but I haven't heard.
Betty and Barney Hill were these people that got quote abducted by aliens or whatever, but could have been a government experiment or whatever, and they were regressed to take them back through what happened. And Barney was like screaming to the top of his lungs when they were going through this thing. And I'm like you, dude. I told you about the Bigfoot thing. Like I look for bullshit all the time. This
blows my mind a little bit though, that you gave Bigfoot a 3 out of 10.
Bigfoot's bullshit, man.
That blows my mind, because I truly give more credit to Bigfoot than to some of this stuff that
somebody would have shot one by now, dude. Come on, man. Like,
that's my same argument to you though, is that somebody would have a freaking YouTube channel that we could go to right now, and they'll be like, watch, I'm gonna knock this candle over.
Let me ask you a question. What did you see in the when you did PCP? Did you see entities?
Well, I've never done PCP
or whatever.
I'm willing to.
That's crazy, because you asked me to do PCP, but you never done it. Huh?
Yeah, I'm a catalyst.
So, did you see entities on Salvia?
Yeah, no, I've seen the shepherdess. Okay, and I've seen the little
counting out
and stuff.
Me saying that I knocked on a table. Okay, counting all that out, or pinching or whatever. I need you to show me those entities.
Well, I mean, I don't think that they necessarily exist outside of my own head, which is the big difference, I think. Like, I think it was 100% subjective experience, but the difference is that everyone seems to have that same subjective experience. And that doesn't mean that like they're actually existing in our objective reality. I feel like this is an
impossible conversation though, right? Like here's what I'm saying. Would you be willing to be suggestive to have an out of body experience?
Oh, Hunter, I want it bad. I mean, I badly want it. And I feel like I'm open to it, and I'm not lying to myself about that, because I'm also very open to lucid dreaming, and I went through a whole course and was able to dramatically improve my ability to lucid dream in ways that I astounded myself. So like I can put in the work, and I can open my mind enough up to it. Unless we're talking about like here's the Old and New Testament, give this another shot. I don't know if I can go through that again.
Do you have the ability to relax to a point where you can feel your body falling asleep without you going to sleep?
No. I've done this many times and I always fall asleep. I'm one of those people in the room that starts snoring and everyone like kind of laughs. They're like, oh, someone didn't pass the test. That's me every time.
So this is simple. Then you start out with hypnagogic exercises. They talk about this in a lot of chaos magic books. You've got to do stuff that would keep you from falling asleep. But
like what?
Like, for instance, there's an experiment that some chaos magicians used to do where they would hold a ball in their hand, or they'd hold something they didn't want to break, right? And they would fall asleep in a chair, but it was something so valuable that they wouldn't drop it, something that their brain just wouldn't let go. Like, for instance, $100 bill, right? Like, you're not going to drop $100 bill. There's something about your brain that just doesn't want to drop it on the floor, you know? So you kind of pinch it between your fingers and you sit in a chair and you do the relaxation stuff. And if you,
I actually do this. I usually fall asleep with like
drop
a
the
vape
$100
pen
bill
in my hand. No, I've got a vape pen in my hand though. And like, I usually will make sure that, you know, I don't drop it.
You got to find something that will do that though, that you'll be like, I cannot drop this, or I cannot let this go. Right.
Okay.
And if you're willing to do that, then you could do hypnagogic exercises, but you also might not be able to, with maybe it could be medication. It could be just that, like, I think people can relax. If we truly knew how to relax, we wouldn't just fall asleep. If you fall asleep, it's okay. And that you can't beat yourself up because you're falling asleep, but to keep practicing it is the key. To keep doing it over and over again. And this is what the hemisync thing helped with. This is what Monroe figured out. Like, these tones did something to the brain, you know, like it would sync the hemispheres of the brain because you got two different tones that are barely off, that you could even hear the wah-wahs turn into a single tone. Because
You're
the
talking
brain,
binaural beats right now?
yeah, because the brain would get tired of the wah-wahs, just the itty bitty wah-wah, and it would eventually just turn into a tone. Right. And there was
that's how you get over tinnitus too. Some people will get, I got a few friends that lost hearing from like gunshots, and you'll have this like loud pitch ringing, and the way that they solve it is that they'll find whatever that frequency is, and they'll have you just listen to it in headphones for like months. And essentially to some point, your brain's like, I'm sick of hearing this frequency off, and you just never hear that frequency again. But you're really training your brain to ignore it for the rest of your life.
I find it completely. This is back to my other point. I'm flabbergasted at people that just do not believe in things they haven't fully tried. I'm not talking about a half-ass attempt. I'm talking about they haven't fully tried. It's like, I want to be a black belt in Taekwondo, but I just don't even. I think the white belt stuff is, these katas are stupid, right? Okay, well, why do you, what's the point, right? Like, you're just making an argument. If you really want to know, then you have to dive into it with an open mind, right? Otherwise, it's not like I'm not talking about make aliens come down or fairy dust or even getting out of body and going and pinching somebody. What I'm talking about is, like, do you want to know if it's even real at all for you? Right? And I'm not just talking to you, anybody listening. Do you want to know? Or are you, because I wonder about this sometimes, why talk about it and fight it? Why even bring it up if you don't give a shit or don't want to know?
Well, because it might be just this pervasive shared illusion that just won't go away. Because, like the karate example, there's no such thing as not believing in karate, because you can see a black belt do all the techniques and kick some ass and do, you know, amazing feats. But when someone's like, I'm a black belt magician, or I'm a super high OTO, you know, super grand dragon double bubble wizard, like, okay, so like, what can you do? And it's like, oh, I can recite all these arcane texts. And,
well, none of those guys ever say, I can shoot lightning out of my ass.
But because if they did, it would be like, now all of a sudden science would be an objective fact that everyone would just know about. But it's not that, right? It's not, I can shoot lightning bolts out of my hands. It would be convenient if it was, because now you've got proof. Now you've got proof that you've got magic. I
got to tell you, bro, like, I am at the point where I don't care who believes me or don't. But the people that really want, like, I still would get off on people that are just like dumbfounded when it happens to them. you know.
I want to be that guy because I have been just as dumbfounded. I went from staunch, I guess, atheist, agnostic. I guess I'm more agnostic now, but staunch atheist. And then it really was like those salvia experiences, not mine, but seeing other people repeat the same thing over and over. And it was just like, there has to be something more. And even if it's not like this big greater thing, it's something that I don't understand yet. So graduate from atheist to agnostic, maybe.
Yeah.
And that was the thing though, because it was a repeatable, objective slash subjective experience over and over.
And another thing too is like the state that you have to be in to get into an out of body experience, period, just to get to the point where your body's vibrating and your mind is still awake, to the point where you can start peeling yourself out of your body, is such a, it's like almost like an art, right? And then you're like, well, no, let's put them in front of an audience and let's put it to the test. And, like, let's put them in a hyper chamber and let's see if it's real. It's like, even
right, can't you just set up like your camera on a tripod and does not take the pressure off?
But what if, like, that's, to me, it's like, can you set up your camera and see particles that don't exist, Like, it doesn't make sense to me, right? This is why you have to experience it for yourself. And then when you do, you're going to know what I'm talking about. You're going to be like, there's no fucking way I could prove this to people. There's just no way.
And I see the correlation here between magic and psychedelics in that way.
There's no way I could prove this to people. There's no way I could have this many synchronicities, this many coincidences, this many things that happened or whatever. And I could just say, yeah, magic is real. I can put science behind it. Like, it's not a rational thing. It's not meant to be that way. Right. And yet we look out at the stars and we wonder if the earth is flat. Right. We think we know what gravity is. We think we know about the universe and how big it is, but we don't want to experiment to try to figure out any of it because either we're afraid or we just need to be right, or the unknown might be a scary thing because then I don't know shit and I'm not in control of nothing, That's how I am. That's how I am with psychedelics, honestly.
I don't know. I feel like I'd be willing to jump off of all of those cliffs, man. I don't feel like I'm afraid to be proven wrong because I've been so many times, but that might just also be part of the ego illusion.
It's like levitation. People talk about that all the time, right? Well,
that one goes back a long time. Like, there was many people in ancient cultures that would claim to be able to levitate.
And I have never seen a person levitate. Ever.
There was like a flying pope or something. There was one of the popes or a bishop. He was like a flying bishop that they actually wrote that people saw him flying around inside of like the church. So that would be dope, man. I mean, that would be objective.
I would be freaked out if I saw that. I'd be like, there's some demonic stuff going on here. Like, something's weird, Like, I guess my mind believes in this dual thing, right? Like, there's the dense physical world that we live in, this womb called the earth. It has laws, it has cause and effect, it has all kinds of laws that run this thing, right? For us to break those rules a little bit is hard, right? Because we have to do like Morpheus says, we really have to free our mind, doubt all this other stuff, everything we think we know, all this bullshit, in order to get out of the matrix. And we still can't even do that. We need 1,000 or 1,000,000 rats and to push them so hard in experiments that one rat will break a record. And then all of a sudden humanity catches up. It's the same thing with high jumps and all the stuff with the animals are catching. The same thing with humanity. We need thousands of people to push and push and push and push until one person breaks that record. Now, all of them suddenly can break that record. If that doesn't show the power of like our disbelief or our boundaries are just as powerful, right, that stop us from experiencing things, then I don't know how else to explain it, I
think there's a rational explanation for this, though. Like, let's take like Usain Bolt or someone that was like the fastest person on the planet for a short amount of time, and then all of a sudden, like, a bunch of people started becoming the fastest people on the planet. But the rational version of me is like, because Usain Bolt developed a very specific training regimen and a very specific diet and just a very specific way of getting himself to that state, and now other people can model themselves after that exact same procedure.
Yeah,
and
I hear what you're saying there, but it doesn't work that way if you take two separate like groups of, like, say, animals or whatever, and I
want to look into this because I hear what you're saying.
Yeah,
and
it doesn't work that way. It's not like all the rats were like, oh, what did he do to find that piece of cheese in the L zone? You know.
Do you know what that study was called? Because I feel like I want to just like dismantle it.
I have to look at that up. I think I'll send it to you.
Because that one sounds magical. That one would absolutely blow my mind. That if there was, in hell, you could just do it in two different cities. If in Tampa they taught a rat how to get through a maze, and all of a sudden Orlando, the rats were getting through that maze. They did this experiment. I know the guy's name. It's on the tip of my tongue. The guy that did these experiments, but I can't think of it. I keep thinking Ray Kurzweil, but it's not Ray Kurzweil. That dude did the singularity. I'll figure it out and I'll send it to you. It's not some convenient thing where I'm trying to avoid it. It's just I'm old. And it's late. Like, I'm 10 minutes past the showtime right now. I don't even Let's keep it going. Let's go 4 hours.
Get on Omegle and ask people about Bigfoot.
Well, we were going to, but Omegle died between last week and this week. How crazy is that?
Yeah, dude. I mean, when you ask me, this is the thing that I hate about this. It's like when you ask me to, get out of body and knock. Like, I know for a fact that if I do this on my own, I could do it. But just the thought of trying to prove it to everybody is going to fuck with me, right? It's going to fuck with me.
But would you feel like you're proving it? So let's just say that you set up, theoretically, let's just say that you set up an audio recorder in every room of your house that is just recording 24/7 nonstop so that it becomes ubiquitous. And now you, as often as you can, you always try to astral project and go and knock somewhere in the house. And if you record enough of those, then now you're developing some objective
There will always
proof.
Be somebody said that sounds like a tree knock. That sounds like a whatever.
So I know, but I'm not talking about proving it to someone else. I'm talking about proving it to yourself.
There you go.
I guess if you're already convinced, then
I'm already convinced. I don't need to.
Well, then there's no point in doing it, right?
Yeah. But I would challenge anybody, like, if you want to know the stuff, if you're not willing to open your mind and try it, I'm not saying just don't half-ass attempt it and go, well, it didn't work, Well, that didn't work. It's just kind of like, well, I want to build my body. I'm never going to be this. Like, you didn't even try. And you did a half-ass attempt at that. Where I'm listening to people that are like Robert Monroe, I bring up all the time because he's got 3 books of nothing but experiments that he talked about. Nothing but variable after variable after variable, and going to doctors and psychology. And that dude convinced me enough to just try it and to open my mind and see if it would work. And he had to do all of that crap in them books for me to go, okay, this might be a real thing. Which showed me, like how closed off I am to anything outside of what I think is real, But
so a question for you: if magic is
bullshit.
real, and the way that we're talking about magic being real, then it should be real enough that you wouldn't have to believe in it for it to affect you, right? And
I mean, you don't have to believe in it. It's like you don't even have to use magic. But if you could come up with a system, like as far as what I'm talking about, it's like the ceremonial transmutative stuff where you change who you are. It changes who you are, and therefore the things come into your life that you deeply desire in your soul, right? And your deepest desires start coming into your life. So in order for you to change who you are, there's a massive deprogramming that has to happen, right? Well, if you want to look at it rationally, how do you deprogram a program and start all over and program it with something else? You have to have a system in place that cuts out the whole program and go, okay, well, this means this means that, this means this means that. Start programming yourself with this, right? And then it does that. That's why people go, is it a simulation or is it magic? I'm like, it could both be the same thing. We're just calling it magic because we don't understand the programming, The
simulation stuff bores me way more. I would rather talk about magic than simulation all day, any day.
Well, dude, I just think that you can change anything you want to about yourself. And I'm the kind of person that's like, you're like, well, humans can't fly. Right? Humans can't fly. They just can't go outside and fly.
Until the first person starts flying. And then everybody can fly.
And then everybody's going to fly, man. You know what I mean? Like, this whole thing could be a messed up program. It could be. But we are so, I mean, it's like dogs and cats, dude. We're just a higher version of dogs and cats. It's like me telling an ant, like, look, dude, you know where your little mound is, right? There's a whole, like, there's rivers and oceans and lakes and fish and seas and stuff and they're like, what, dude? No, there's a cracker. I'm taking it back to my mound. You know, like, we're doing this thing. I don't know what you're talking about. That's not a foot. That's a tree. You know, like, that's the way I look at it. We think we know a lot of shit, but we don't know shit, you know.
It's a fair point. I'm not going to argue on that.
But just being able to just barely get out of body, to me, changed everything, man. It was like to get out of body a few times. But I still have doubts about people that are like, I do it every day. I go talk to Thoth. I go to Mars. I go to Jupiter. I got, like, until I've done that, like, I think you're full of shit.
So, okay, so you can't go to outer space?
I tried. I haven't been able to do it yet. Like, I literally went outside of my house, like, went out the door, started to see if I could levitate and fly in my astral body, and I did exactly what, like, they explained it. Like, when he says in the book, it's not really flying, you're pulling yourself or stretching to something, and that's the only way I can explain it. Like, I got what he said because I would focus on something, and I would just move, like, something would move me or stretch me to it, right?
It was like Mr. Incredible, or
yeah, it's not like the stretchy arm, but it's hard to explain it consciously, right? Because my body would fly to it, right? But then I was like, well, the first thing I told myself was, well, I'm going to go to space. I'm going to see the dark side of the moon. Boom, right? So I just take off. I don't even know where the hell I'm going. And then it all turns to static and this kind of weird white noise. And then I'm like, taking a deep breath, waking up again. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. You know, I was far enough away from my body. Why didn't I get to go to space? Well, you're not ready for that. There's something in your consciousness. It's blocking it off. Oh, bullshit, man. Tell me why I couldn't go. You know, like, I had all of these thoughts and I kept going back and doing it again. And the more I got frustrated, the more boundaries that kept happening. Like, I'd be blind, but I could feel everything. Or my feet would raise up and my head would be stuck, you know. And then I started realizing there is something that correlates to being open. And then the second I start defining something with my consciousness, it screws it all up, you know?
We got to get you on some salvia, Joe.
Dude, would you be willing? Here's the thing. If you're willing to have a salvia experiment, I don't know if you can even do this, because if I said, hey, I'm going to video this, but we're going to shut off everything. It's going to be dead silent. You just have to forget that I'm here and the audience is here. If you're willing to do that, then I'm willing to do it.
What, to tell you to turn the lights off? Yeah, I'll do that right now. Joe,
there's got to be a way we could like see what's happening to you, though.
Are you talking about me doing it? I'm talking about you doing it.
No, you first. Why? Why not?
Well, first of all, it's a controlled substance in Florida, so I would clearly never do anything that would jeopardize or go against the law. But if, let's say we went to Las Vegas, I think, let's say we put up a
screen while you're taking the hits and say, we don't know what he's doing right now, you know?
Or like, we're currently in Las Vegas right now. This is legal. And then the screen, goes back to my background, and it's like, okay.
We can get around that, you know?
So I don't know what are you asking for here? Did I just do salvia on a live stream and turn the lights off?
I want you to put yourself.
I wouldn't though. I wouldn't because
why not?
I know because that would be a horrible experience. Because knowing that there's an observer would ruin the entire experience, and there's no way to not realize there's an observer there.
Okay, so what if I told you that the OBE thing is the same way?
I mean, I get it. I get what you mean. But here's the difference is that someone could, without me knowing about it, set up a camera and have it recording, and I would still have the same experience, but you wouldn't see anything. You would just see someone laying down in the darkness, you know,
I
and
thought
maybe
you
like
said,
laughing a little bit, rolling around.
Some people go crazy though in the dark, right?
Yeah, but that's usually people that do it the first 1 or 2 or 3 times. And what happens, this is another incredible aspect of salvia. I feel like every episode with you is like a salvia episode.
That's your pushing your salvia agenda on me.
There's this, yeah, and promo code Paranoid15, salvia, 15% off. I get a kickback wherever you buy it. Tell your dealer. But there's this concept of called inverse tolerance, which sounds like it shouldn't be true, but from everything that I've read about salvia, it is true. And basically every other drug on the planet that we're aware of, you build a tolerance up over time. So you do a little bit, you got to keep taking a little bit more and more and more.
That's how people overdose, by the way.
It is the exact opposite with salvia. The first time you do it, you might need to take a bit of it. A lot of people take these huge extracts, like 100x or 200. There's one called Elephant Killer. It's like fucking 600x, where they take an extract and they drop it down onto the raw material. But so what happens though is that after you understand how to accept it and kind of like not fight it and drift and let Lady Salvia open that door for you and walk through that door. Once you've done that the first time, the next time it doesn't take as much.
Listen to this guy that doesn't believe in magic and stuff talking about Lady Salvia and all these romantic names.
I'm telling you, that's my version of spirituality. You've
ritualized this thing in your mind, but yet, you know, you don't understand all this other stuff.
Well, so, but again, dude, the difference is that I have had these thoughts. Like I know that Lady Salvia is there. I know how she acts and the things that she does. I'll tell someone else like, hey, here's this thing that they've never heard of. Would you be willing to try it? You're going to flip out a little bit. You know what I mean? But I don't tell them anything about what they're going to see. It's just like, hey, we're going to make sure that you sit down here. If you try to stand up or walk around, like we're going to have you sit back down because it's not safe to move around.
We gotta get out of here. But can you explain, to me like one, like, I don't know. Can you put into words what an experience is like that you've really had like a real big breakthrough experience on salvia?
It wouldn't make any sense to anybody that hasn't done it before.
Can you try?
But at one point I was a box of cereal floating in space. And the weirdest part of this, like I know what it feels like. It's such a weird thing to say. Like I know what it feels like to be and not like me as a person inside the box or like a anthropomorphized box where it's got.
You know what it feels like to be a box of Raisin Bran.
An actual box. I think it was like Lucky Charms or something. But I know what it's like to be a sugary box of cereal floating out in outer space. And then when I came back to, I also realized, man, like when I was that box of cereal, I didn't understand what gravity was, air, humanity, time, age, nothing. Like all of that just completely disappeared. The only thing I knew was being a box of cereal in outer space.
Does that mean the boxes of cereal have consciousness?
I don't know, dude. I mean,
because
I don't think that there's cereal
like
in outer
rock
space.
And a plant, like they're alive, right?
I mean, in Rosicrucian aspect, yeah, everything has a little bit of soul, but it lives in like lower dimensions, and they can only experience so much based on the complexity of their form.
That's so trippy. Like out of all of the answers your I amness could want to know, it's like I wonder what a box of cereal feels like floating in outer space.
Well, I don't think I wanted to know that. It just happened, and the coolest thing too
is the probability button on Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? It's like some kind of weird improbability drive, you know.
I mean, and there's been other ones too, but that one was the most like, and that was probably the last time I did it was probably like 10 years ago, and that was before it became illegal in Florida. But I remember that it was just like instant, like it was okay. We're gonna take a quick little rip, and then bam, I'm in outer space as the cereal box. But every experience prior to that, especially when I was younger, it first would start with like getting sweats, and then you giggle uncontrollably, and then your body feels like it's, you know, getting pressed up against something, or there's like compression going. Like there's all these other phases. It is scary as hell. And then it feels like you're getting pulled into like a vortex, and there's all of these very intense feelings. But again, that inverse tolerance aspect, that once you've done that so many times and you know like where that door is, you can kind of skip all that extra crap and jump right into the breakthrough. And then it was like, I'm on my couch, I'm in Florida, you know, I've got feet and I'm a person. And then a minute later, I'm a cereal box in outer space that has no recollection of reality. And then I'm back into being on a couch again. And that doesn't happen unless you're very, very experienced in it, because then you go through like, you come out and you're like, oh man, it was crazy. Like my body felt like it was being stretched and I felt like something was pushing me and I was giggling and why am I sweating? And you're like, dude, you don't even know about the half of it. Like you got, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
I can tell this stuff has transformed you, man, a little bit, right? How many times, honestly, how many times have you done this?
Probably 60-ish. Probably more than that.
Do you think it's messed up your brain at all?
No.
Not at all.
I mean,
so you'd be willing to take, I'm going to do the paranoid American. Would you be willing to take a CAT scan to see if it's messed up with your brain? Like if there's some real effects there?
I mean, yeah, I don't care. I mean, if you're paying for the CAT scan,
I'm not paying for that. That's like $30,000 or something.
Yeah.
For one of those, isn't it?
No, I don't think so. If anything, it probably changed me for the better. I really do believe that, because it went from being a nihilist atheist into, okay, maybe there is like a shared experience and me doing something messed up affects somebody else, you know, indirectly. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean that it's like some kind of karmic law, but it would just be like if I went and took a shit on the sidewalk, someone might step in it. You know what I mean? And that's not karmic law or like magic. It's just cause and effect, man.
Well, you have to understand that magic is based on hermetics, and one of the laws of hermetics is cause and effect. So, like, I just don't think people understand magic. Yeah, I don't think they fully grasp it, like, to the extent that it should be grasped, right? It's like, well, I performed a play. Does that mean it's real? You know, like, what? Right? It doesn't. Like, I performed a Eucharist. Does that mean I'm eating the body of Christ? You know, it's like, what? You brushed your teeth every morning. Does that mean you're gonna get a cavity or you're not gonna get a cavity? But you do it so you don't get cavities. You know. So ritual magic is a bit different than, like, you know, I'm gonna light something. But I don't want to go back down that road because you got a million questions that are gonna like negate what I'm trying to say. I know that. You know. I know you.
It's not the gay. I don't know. I like, again, I'm an engineer at heart. So the first time someone makes a statement, my brain immediately goes to, how can I hack this? How can I work around the system? How can I find the exploits and the workarounds and the loopholes? And that's,
well, if I tell you,
I'm just fascinated with that stuff.
If I tell you to see a pink elephant, like, and people say that all the time, can you see the pink elephant? And I've realized that some people cannot see color in their mind. Mm-hmm. Like, my dad told me that one day. He's like, some people don't even dream in color. I'm like, what?
I've heard that some people don't even visualize things. They think of a word. If you say pink elephant, they'll think of the word pink elephant.
Yeah. And I said, wait, people don't dream in color? Are you kidding me? He's like, no, there's people that cannot dream in color.
Have you ever heard that people didn't see the color blue until recently? Have you heard this before?
Oh, God. I want to know.
Someone told me recently that was attributed to Helena Blavatsky. I don't know how true that is, but the concept is pretty much just as it sounds, is that until like the 1800s, nobody knew what the color blue looked like. It just wasn't in our vision. And then at some point, blue became a thing, and now everyone sees blue and they just accept as though we've always been able to see it. But how do you prove that as right or wrong?
You'd have to go back to the first people that even started talking about color.
Right, but then even then, how would them describing what they're seeing prove whether or not they could actually see the color blue?
It doesn't. I've had this conversation before. I can't prove that what you call blue is what I call blue, and there's no way that we could actually. I've
heard that before. I think that's false, though, because we could both go into different rooms and basically say, okay, when you see the color blue, hit a button. And then the color blue is very directly associated with a certain frequency, right? It's a frequency of visible light.
Sure,
so
but
if we both hit the button in that same range, we're both seeing blue.
Yeah, but the actual hue of the color that your eye sees, if we, for instance, from the time you were born, and just bear with me here, We know that it's a frequency and a reflection, right? So from the time you were born, you're like, that's blue. And I'm like, yep, that's blue. And you're the kid next to me like, blue, that's blue, right? It's blue. Blue, blue, blue. But what if we're actually seeing different colors? But we called that one blue.
I would say it wouldn't matter. I'd say it would have no impact because color theory and mathematics would still be the same. So complementary colors would still be like if your blue was really your red, right?
Yeah.
But that would just mean that all of your colors would also be shifted by that same offset.
Yeah. But we don't know. So then that
the
I don't know that
work.
You see the same thing though. Like on a frequency level, and what your brain calls it blue, and what my brain calls it blue in that frequency, I know that we're seeing that same thing. But the actual color that our eyes see, I don't know.
But to imagine that nobody saw the color blue until recently.
I don't know about that. That's weird. It just all of a sudden came into our consciousness, blue. Well, I don't know, because I think certain things are coming into the collective on a sense, but I don't know.
It's the mouse thing, right? It's like all of a sudden some dude saw the color blue and then the next day everyone's like, whoa, what's this new blue thing?
What if we start seeing infrared or whatever later, you know? It's like, oh, when one person saw infrared, now the rest of us can see it, or we could see ultraviolet light or whatever, you know?
Yeah, but also it's like, how come I can't slam dunk like Michael Jordan? Like he's shown me how to do it plenty of times. How come I can't do a windmill?
Yeah, for sure. Dude, I'm sorry we didn't get to do the chat roulette, man, but this conversation got too deep.
Well, blame Omegle, bro. Omegle decided to die between last time and tonight.
We had this all planned out. If you go to Omegle.com, is it Omegle.com? Yeah.
Yeah, OMEGLE.com, but it is no longer there. It's dead.
They got a big graveyard thing up there, you know.
We killed it, bro. They saw us coming. They were like, they're getting too close to the truth, asking these international students about Bigfoot.
Well, I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving. I don't know if you believe in it or not, but I hope you have a happy Thanksgiving.
I do. Hey, I want to say, I always try to post this, but it always gets taken down. But just look up William S. Burroughs' Thanksgiving prayer. Think of me when you watch it. That is my absolute favorite Thanksgiving special. It's like a 1.5 minute long monologue. So yeah, William S. Burroughs' Thanksgiving prayer from me to you.
Is it something bad? Probably.
There's some language in it, but he's a poet. What do you want?
All right, we'll check that out. You guys go to paranoidamerican.com, get the comic books, man. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. Follow what he's doing. We need guys like Paranoid American to. I wonder why. Can I call you Paranoid American? Right. A
lot of people do. Yeah. My name's Thomas, but I got enough people that call me just Paranoid that I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with it too, and I'm glad you came on, man. And we'll have you back. Good night, y'all. Sweet dreams. Go to paranoidamerican.com. Check out his website. Donate to the Fringe FM. Help us out. Sweet dreams.